Good evening, Little Masters, and welcome to episode 317 of the Prancing Pony podcast, where we finally find ourselves on the brink of the chasm at the very crack of doom.
Somebody needs to call like health and safety or something, because I think we need a guardrail installed over here.
I think we do.
Folks, I'm Matt, the Nerd of the Rings, and I'm here with the Man of the West, in the heart of his realm and the forges of his ancient might, Alan Sisto.
Oh, that was low even for you, Matt. Are you revealing the magnitude of my own folly and asking you to join me? Well, folks, join us as Frodo does not choose now to do what he came to do in the last of our 4 episodes on Mount Doom, the 3rd chapter in Book 6 of The Lord of the Rings.
It's really pretty hard to believe that we're finally at this moment. I mean, gosh, you guys have been doing this for years.
Yeah, something like 225 episodes in The Lord of the Rings, somewhere around that range. Yeah.
Now, folks, no matter how you arrived, you're all welcome here in the common room. At the Prancing Pony podcast, we are reading and talking our way through Middle-earth with plenty of speculation and, as you can tell, bad jokes along the way.
That's right. The bad jokes are all his. The good ones are mine. We love deep dives into the lore. We love discussing our favorite themes and a whole lot more.
But we try to keep it light and fun, like a couple friends chatting at the pub, and we're glad you've joined us.
And I'm sure you'll be glad you joined as well. But before we get to tonight's chapter discussion, it's time for us to sit down with a good friend of the podcast who's just happened to write one of the most insightful books on Tolkien that I've had the privilege of reading.
Now, he's been with us before, back in episode 88. He introduced you and Sean at your very first live recording, and he's been a guest on a few of our Questions After Nightfall episodes.
That's right. And while he was here with us in July of last year, that was before his new book, Pity, Power, and Tolkien's Ring, was released. Now, folks, his book was released a couple months back in December, and if you don't already have it in your shelves, you need to do something about that.
Yeah, like right now. Just go ahead, pause the show, take a break from listening to me and Alan, look at the show notes to get the link where you can go buy it, and we'll just wait right here for you while you go do that.
That's right. Now, when I said earlier that it's insightful, I kind of mean jaw-dropping, face-palming. How have I never thought of that insightful? Folks, please welcome to the podcast, Tom Hillman.
Thanks, Alan. Thanks, Matt. Glad to be here.
It's totally our pleasure.
Now, Tom, as the title suggests, your book is a study on the theme of pity in The Lord of the Rings and how it interacts with the power of the One Ring. From the start, you make the point that pity is necessary for the destruction of the ring, but that pity cannot protect Frodo from the power and influence of the ring. I was wondering, can you expand on that a bit? Why is pity necessary? And given that pity won't protect Frodo, can anything?
That's a good question. Nothing within the world can protect Frodo from the ring, because, nothing can protect anyone from the ring within the world. The only ones, and they're not actually even in the world anymore, who would be immune to the effects of the ring would be the Valar.
Right.
Because they're more powerful than Sauron. And so the power of the ring would not equal any power they had. But other than that, any other Mire, any elf, dwarf, whatever, would succumb to the power. So that means that the help has to come from somewhere else. And, one of the things that I noticed and that I talk about is that, sometimes Gandalf talks about in Shadow of the Past, sometimes he talks about pity and uses a small p, and sometimes he talks about pity and uses a big P.
Yeah.
Okay. And Frodo doesn't hear the difference between the capital and the small, but the difference is significant, because the difference is pity with a big P is pity that is somehow either, like invoked or tapped into the pity of Iluvatar. And so Frodo is in the end saved by that pity.
Yes.
And he's saved because he felt pity, because, there's this whole succession of pity. You've got first Bilbo's pity, which leads to Frodo's pity, which leads to Sam's pity. And it's all three of those where you end up with the eucatastrophe happens because of that. There is nothing within Arda, there is nothing within the world that can resist that power. So the answer has to come from somewhere else.
From beyond Arda, yeah.
Exactly, from beyond Arda. And of course, Gandalf is like, shh, I can't talk about that.
First rule about Eru, don't talk about Eru.
Exactly,
yeah.
Exactly.
Well, the episode that this interview is in is the last of our 4 episodes on the chapter Mount Doom. Now, it's not a chance meeting that you're here today. In fact, one might say you were meant to be here for this episode. Cheap and easy references aside, we're at the point of the destruction of the ring. And while I would love to talk about the entirety of the book some other time, and I mean that, today I want to focus on these moments. At the end of our previous episode, Gollum attacked Frodo and Sam on the road up the mountain, and it was clear that he finally understood Frodo's intent. That is, the intent to destroy the ring. First, Tom, do you think that he knew or at least suspected earlier on? There were a couple of moments where it seemed like an unspoken thing. And then second, I want to talk about something that we don't really discuss in the text very much right here, and that's the power of the ring over Gollum right now in comparison to the power of the ring over Frodo, which is pretty intense. It is certainly near the very peak for Frodo.
Well, I don't think Gollum, because I think Gollum finds the idea of harming the ring inconceivable.
The joke has to be made, Tom.
I know. So so I cannot choose the ring in front of you, but yeah, Gollum finds the thought of harming the ring inconceivable, and I really don't think it's until just before he attacks them.
Yeah.
It's interesting now that I think about it, because I hadn't really thought about this before. I knew that was when he thought about it.
Sure.
When he realized it. I thought that. But I didn't really think about what led him to make this conclusion all of a sudden. And I think he's remembering Frodo, when Frodo at the Black Gate says, if you say, give me the ring again, I'll put on the ring and I'll tell you to throw yourself into the fire and you'll do it. And I think I think he finally puts that together.
Yeah.
At this point. And of course, Frodo sort of says that same thing again.
Yeah, he does. More prophetically and less about himself doing it and more about this will just be the result. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's when I think it becomes clear to Gollum that what Frodo's intention is. Because I think the whole thing, right from we hear like Isildur, I will risk no harm to it.
Yes.
It's just like, it's so beautiful. Frodo's looking at it. Oh, it's so beautiful. Yeah, everybody thinks the ring is beautiful. And it is.
And it is. Yeah.
It's got all the beauty of Sauron in it.
Mm-hmm. That's why he can't be Anatar anymore. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Because all of the stuff that made him beautiful has gotten put into the ring, and so he can't. He no longer has it in him to make himself beautiful.
Yeah. I'd always wondered that, right? There's a moment early on, I think it's one of the moments at the Black Gate where he says to Gollum, if you ever want to be free of him, then you have to help me. Mm-hmm. And you're like, okay, I know what he's talking about.
Right.
But I think you're right. Gollum has no idea that he would even conceive of this, right? Maybe he's going to Mordor to plant himself as the new Dark Lord. He's going to Barad-dûr to overthrow the foundations, He's not going to go destroy it until all of a sudden he's on Mount Doom. What's he doing here? This is the wrong place to go with the ring. Yeah.
Precisely. Whatever he may have thought. If you think back when Gollum is having his little Gollum/Smeagol discussion.
Yes, the debate.
Which Sam is overhearing. Sam, who's always pretending to be asleep. Never ever believe. Like Frodo says, next time I'll kick you to make sure you're asleep. But Sam overhears this, and what does Gollum imagine? Gollum has this ridiculous Gollum the Great, fish fresh from the sea every day, twice a day. No one's ring fantasy ends with, and then I'll throw it in the fire.
Right. Even Sam's doesn't. Even Sam, who knows that's the objective.
Right.
That's not part of his fantasy. Yeah, it's Samwise the strong hero of the age.
Great thing about Sam's fantasy is that you remember back, I guess I think it might have been when he sings the troll song.
Yeah.
Afterwards, and they were like, "Oh wow, Sam, you're amazed that you made this thing up. Next thing you know, you'll end up being a wizard or a warrior." And Sam's like, "Nope. What does he fantasize about being? He fantasizes about the very thing that they said he would end up being, and he denied.
Oh yeah,
is the thing that comes to him. Samwise the Strong with a flaming sword, waving his hand, and the Vale of Gorgoroth bursts into flowers.
And the orcs turn into like badgers and friendly creatures, if you believe the Rankin Bass adaptation. Anyway, I digress.
I'd forgotten that.
That was such a weird, trippy dream, man. So just briefly, because I know that we're already going to run long, and that's okay. This is so fantastic to talk to you about this book. the second part of that question, the power of the ring, we see the power of the ring over Frodo during these last several chapters, right? I mean, it's just dragging him. What about Gollum right now? What in the world is going on with him at this point in the story?
Remember back to Shadow of the Past when Gandalf says he's not wholly ruined.
Yes.
Those words come back.
They do.
Because Sam looks at him, and that's when Sam's pity comes. And for many reasons, but he says he was now ruined.
Wholly ruined.
He was now wholly ruined, and so he is not only wholly enslaved by the ring, but he's also wholly ruined.
Yeah,
he's just completely broken. And the only thing is the ring. And the ring is not only his master, but which is what kind of different with Frodo. Frodo is, for another minute or two, not quite wholly in the power of the ring,
right?
But about as close as you can get without being there. But he's not wholly ruined yet.
No.
He's still at the point where he thinks he's in charge. It's like he's still thinking, I'm not going to do this, right?
Right.
I choose not to do the thing that I came to do.
Oh, and we'll get to that for sure.
Yes, I'm sure.
Now, we actually last week on the podcast talked about Frodo leaving Sam here and quoted the line from your book about Frodo's strangely formal farewell to Sam. Can you take a moment to expand on that here and talk about why that's so notable and kind of in a way foreboding?
Yeah, several places you need to kind of think of. One of them is when Frodo talks to Faramir, right? He uses very formal language at times when he's talking to Faramir, but it's courtesy.
Yeah.
It's just, these are the forms.
Yes.
It's just like if you meet the queen or the king, you don't say, "Hey, Chuck, how you doing?" You don't talk to, people like that.
Right.
And so he's observing the forms, and he's educated enough to know that there are forms that need to be observed. And so even if he doesn't know particularly what they may be, he knows enough to make an approximation that will say, "Hey, I'm trying to do those things here." So there's that kind of formal language on the one hand. But then if you start thinking about two other moments before this one, well, Frodo in book 4, the way he speaks changes as the book goes on. He starts out speaking more or less like a hobbit. Lots of contractions and stuff like that. But then he gets into these moments where he stops using contractions. And he's always cannot and no more can'ts and I shall and no more I'ls and things like that. I mean, he does go back and forth with it. So it's not like a constant thing. But the way he uses language changes. And the first place you can really, really notice it is when he tames Gollum using the ring. And he starts saying things like, "You know where it is. It is before you. It is before you." That's
very formal for Frodo. You're right.
Right, exactly. Hobbits don't talk like that.
No, it's in front of you. I've got it.
Exactly. And he talks to Gollum like he's a dog, and you're down. And Gollum is also at times described like a dog. I mean, Sam sees him cringing and says, "Like a dog."
Like a whining dog,
Like a whining dog. Exactly. So when Frodo goes to the point where, he meets Gollum. He pities Gollum. He says, he tries to make a deal with Gollum, right? To see if we can trust him. No, we can't trust him. Okay, they learn that. Okay, so then we're going to have to tie him up. Well, and we can't tie him up and leave him here because then he'll die. We should kill him if we're going to do that. So we're going to have to take him with us. But of course, Gollum whines and complains about the pain of the rope and all of that. And one of my favorite moments is when Frodo finds out that the rope really isn't that tight after all. It's like, Sam is talks much meaner than he acts. Then think about now Aragorn. When Aragorn captured Gollum, he will never love me because he bit me and I was not gentle. Now, Alan, you probably know. I've always felt that he got the back of Aragorn's hand.
Oh, I bet he
did.
At
the very least at that moment.
Yeah. I mean, he traveled 900 miles with them. I cannot imagine.
In like 2 months on foot. Yeah. I mean, it's like, and tied up, gagged, and denied food and drink until he bathed himself.
Yeah.
So Frodo doesn't have it in him to do that. I mean, he can't even, Aragorn would have said, "Stick a rag in his mouth," but Frodo can't or won't do that.
Right.
And it's also true that Aragorn doesn't pity Gollum, but Frodo does. And so Frodo gets to this point where he pities him. He tries to find a way to work with him. He cannot find a way to work with him. The only way he can work with Gollum is by making him swear to obey the Master of the Precious. And here we have Frodo the Hobbit allowing himself to be referred to as the Master of the Precious.
Yes.
You know,
the Lord of the Rings, one might say.
Exactly. Gandalf would have slapped him upside the head at that point.
Yes. Yeah.
That would have raised his eyebrows, but kind of slips by us.
It does.
That happens.
Yeah.
But it's like, wait a minute. Frodo is using the ring to dominate Gollum. And it's interesting that the pity and the power of the ring, like all in basically the same scene.
Yeah.
Because at that point, that scene begins, right? With it's, they're fighting with Gollum. Mm-hmm. Gollum is throttling Sam. Frodo has a perfect opportunity to kill Gollum here. And no one could really have blamed him at that point.
Right.
Because he's killing Sam.
Right.
So you can't say that he would have been striking without need. It would have been justifiable. But Frodo doesn't do it. But he cannot control him, and he has to control him. And unfortunately, there's only one way to control him, by being the Master of the Precious.
Yeah.
You have that scene where he speaks to him like that. Then you have the scene outside the Black Gate.
Right.
Which is it's an absolutely brilliant chapter. But that scene where, Tolkien's not mine. The Black Gate is closed is just this absolutely brilliant chapter. When Gollum says, give the ring back to Smeagol. And Frodo lets it go by.
Yeah.
But he notices it because he comes back to it. He comes back to it later.
Yeah, he does.
He says, and by the way, you gave yourself away just now.
Yeah. Don't ever do that again. Yeah.
Right. And then he taunts him. He says, you will never get it back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Twice he says it to him.
Mm-hmm. You
will never get it back. That's not Frodo, the best hobbit in the Shire right there, taunting Gollum. And he kind of basically reduces him to kind of like a puddle of Gollum on the ground, cringing and all of that.
I think that's even another one where he's kind of referred to as a dog. This is that dog theme goes multiple times in that.
Exactly. So you've got that same formal speech at that point.
Right. For I would put it on and command you to leap off of a precipice or into the fire, and you would do it. And you're right. It's very
in the last need. I should put the ring on.
In the last need. That's not Hobbit talk.
He sounds like Gandalf,
He does.
Or Elrond or something right there.
In the last need. Yeah.
And I think we see this kind of one last time at the moment when he bids farewell to Sam.
And now it's to Sam, though, instead of to Gollum.
Right. Well, yeah. But like he dismisses him, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And even Sam looks at him, and it's like he was looking at somebody who was far away. And the voice doesn't even seem to be Frodo's. The voice seems to be coming out of the ring, which is he's holding at his chest, right? All this, alienation. And so there's this now he's talking to Sam.
Yeah.
Like he's a great lord, talking to a peasant.
Yeah.
And he never talked to Sam like that.
No. Even though there always was a class difference, it was never it was never like
exactly. Frodo was never there are like 2 times in the book where Frodo kind of like rebukes Sam.
Yeah.
One is when Sam says, "Oh, I know where this Black Rider came from.
Yeah.
My father was talking to him, last night." And Frodo's like, "Now you tell us." And he says, "Well, the gaffer can't be blamed." And that's kind of like he's saying, you should have said something. And then also I think when they're on their way home, when Sam is like, "We got to go back to the Shire. We got to go back to the Shire. We got to go back to the Shire." And Frodo's like, "We're going to Rivendell."
Yeah.
Whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because that's in the scene where they meet right after they meet Saruman.
Right.
And so Frodo has just been very kind to Saruman. He said, "Well, I don't have any pipe weed, or I'd give you some."
Right.
And Saruman just kind of like looks at him, doesn't say anything, but kind of like looks at him. And then we get the scene where we better be getting a move on, Mr. Frodo. And Frodo's like, "Yeah, we'll go to the Shire when I say we go to the Shire."
Yeah.
And that's like the only 2 times Frodo ever even talks sternly to Sam. Not talking about the times when he's like crazed and thinks Sam's
right.
Not talking about that, but that's a different piece.
And that indeed it is. So in this episode, Tom, we're going to end up seeing Sam finally have the pity on Gollum that Frodo appears to no longer have, thanks to the ring. Sort of a 2-parter here. Why has it taken Sam so long to finally reach this point? And similarly, why has Frodo seemingly lost the pity that he once had? The phrase that comes to mind, untouchable now by pity, as Sam sees him.
Sam has taken so long to get to this point. Well, Sam started out in a different place.
That's
Frodo,
fair. Yeah.
Frodo only comes to pity Gollum because of his own experience with the ring.
Mm-hmm.
He is adamant that he doesn't think Gollum's to be pitied. Back in Shadow of the Past.
Shadow of the Past, yeah. He said, pity? It's a pity Bilbo didn't stab him, right?
Right, exactly. And Gandalf is trying really hard and trying to point out how important it is that he pity him. But Frodo is like, yeah, no. He's like, dismisses that.
Right.
I mean, and even when Gandalf says his piece about many who live deserve death, and Frodo kind of backs down at that moment, he's still not agreeing with Gandalf.
No.
He's just, Gandalf just said something he doesn't know how to answer.
That's true. It's a philosophical argument he's not ready to take on. Yeah.
And Frodo's like, well, still, I don't think he's like, it's a very ungracious concession on Frodo's part at that point.
Fair.
Sam does not suffer like Frodo. I mean, Frodo, of course, has seen the Black Riders for what they are.
Yes.
Because he's seen them while wearing the ring. He's been stabbed by them. All these different things have happened to Frodo. He's just, and this is easy to forget because when they meet Gollum, the Fellowship only broke like 3 days ago.
Yeah.
It's like, when you leave them at the end of book 2 and then you come back to them at the beginning of book 4, it's really easy to forget after all of that stuff in Rohan.
Right.
That only 3 days have passed for Frodo and Sam.
Right.
That we're going back in time. And so it was only 2 or 3 days ago that Boromir tried to take the ring from Frodo.
Right.
That Frodo saw what it did to Boromir. And so he's seen that. He had his little vision of when Bilbo reached for the ring in Rivendell, when he saw Bilbo as something looking like Gollum, which was, of course, in his head, unlike in the movie. And so Frodo's been through all of this. And plus, he's also more educated than Sam.
Mm.
And so he's read more books than Sam. And I think books tend to give you empathy, from reading books and stuff like that. Despite the fact that he's too terrified of the idea that Gollum might be a hobbit to actually, to even think of what Gollum is.
Right.
So Frodo goes through all this stuff. Sam hasn't gone through all of that stuff.
Yeah.
But even so, I mean, if Sam pities him in the way that we often use pity today.
Yeah. The condescending sort of way.
Right, exactly. When there's a point where Sam looks down at Gollum on the ground and he thinks, poor wretch.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Even Sam, not that he gets to trust Gollum more, because nobody in the book trusts Gollum, and
nobody
should.
Right.
Nobody should. Right.
You say that like it's a bad thing, Tom.
Right. Well, I don't know why I think that somebody might think that Frodo ever trusted Gollum. But Frodo never trusted Gollum.
Thranduil's jailers trusted Gollum. Let's see
exactly. Exactly. Right. Exactly. I think the last person who actually trusted Gollum might have been Deagle.
We'll see how that ended up. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But Sam has to see what happens to Frodo.
Yeah.
Which we really get to see because once you get to the Dead Marshes, once you get into book 4, you really start to see things more from Sam's perspective.
Yes, you do. Yeah.
Because Frodo, as we find out, Frodo forgets stuff.
Yeah.
And because of the ring. And Frodo is so intent on just putting one foot in front of the other that he isn't paying as much attention, especially to Gollum. I mean, at one point it says, there's the point in the Dead Marshes where it says that Frodo was doing this. Sam was paying attention only to his master. Nobody gave a thought to what Gollum might have been going through. So Sam sees this. Sam sees the how pathetic Gollum is.
Yeah.
He then sees what the ring is doing to Frodo.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, he experiences the ring himself.
Yeah.
And of course, at that point, they're right on the border of Mordor. The ring is far more powerful than it's ever been before. So, and he doesn't have it very long, but he's also experiencing it when it's far more powerful.
Yeah.
Than it was like back in the Shire or in Moria or someplace like that. And then, of course, he sees what it does to Frodo as they drag themselves across Mordor and up the mountain to the point where, and then of course it's earlier that same day when Frodo, says like that the famous no feel of water, that whole thing. He cannot remember anything anymore. He remembers that
it happened. He remembers the facts that this thing took place, but he can't remember the experience at all.
It's like on fairy stories where Tolkien talks about, grass and green and this,
yes.
and the adjectives being put together with the things. Beyond that, Frodo is like, he no longer has any of those associations and no emotional connection to anything.
None.
And Sam watches all of this happen, and he knows, and he's also seen Frodo look at him like he was an orc, and Frodo was twice threatened him earlier that day. I mean, and Sam's pity for Frodo drives him to say, and maybe not just his pity, but Sam's pity for Frodo drives him to say, I can carry it if you want.
Yeah.
Even though he knows that he knows that's not going to happen.
Yeah. The text even tells us Sam thought this through. It was like, this probably isn't going to go well.
Right.
But my pity means I can't be quiet. Right. That's what it was. He was unable to remain silent. Yeah.
And how much of that though is like a good emotion, but it's like a self-justification, because it's like,
you
remember there was that moment when he hesitated to give the ring back. And suddenly he felt this reluctance to return the ring. And to his credit, he does return the ring.
Yes.
But if he'd had it a day longer, would he have returned it? If he had it 2 days longer, would he have returned it? I mean, he's had it maybe 24 hours?
Yeah.
36 hours. And already it's like, okay, you take it.
Yeah.
And so it takes Sam a lot longer, to get to that point, for all those reasons. It's also, of course, the fact that he's so protective of Frodo.
Yes.
That, that he knows Gollum's a threat.
Well, I mean, that's after all why he doesn't pity Gollum in the first place, right? He's so mad at Gollum for threatening Frodo all the time that's all he sees in Gollum is the threat to Frodo. And so it's his pity for Frodo that drives him not to be able to feel pity for Gollum.
Exactly. Yeah. And, and to get past that it happened at I guess at just about the right moment.
That's a very good point. Yeah. Yeah.
I think probably just about everybody who reads that moment.
Yeah.
Where Frodo says, farewell, and goes on up the hill. And Sam
Peace
says,
out, brother.
Now I get to deal with you. I don't think anybody expects Sam to go, tell him to run away. Go away. Get out of here. And that's kind of a surprise. And of course, it's a good thing he did that.
Yeah, it's a very good thing.
Because what happens if Sam does kill him? Whatever happens up in the South now is going to be much uglier.
Oh, it is.
It's the same thing. Like people say, what if Faramir had gone on the hunt for Rivendell? Okay, then we end up with Frodo in Ithilien
meeting Boromir,
and
losing the ring there.
Yeah, exactly. And that moment where, he looks around and he goes,
Anborn, tie him up.
Anborn, tie him up, and stuff like that. And, and it's the alternatives, to what would have happened otherwise, if the
speculations are a lot of fun, but you're right. I mean, what happens if Sam does kill Gollum here on the mountain?
Yeah. Then it's kind of like is Sam fighting with Frodo for the ring?
Is Sam going to throw himself, tackle Frodo and drive them both into the fire in order to accomplish
exactly.
Yeah.
What's going to happen? It's not going to be it's not going to be. There's not going to be any happy ending for either.
No, very much no.
Sam is not going to get to have 11D1 children or however many. He has.
Poor Rosie.
Poor Rosie.
Or lucky Rosie, as the case may be, since he had so many kids.
Yeah.
Oh man, good stuff. Well, I tell you what, I know we had a couple more questions in store, but we're already past our time limit. So, Tom, thank you again for being with us today. We'll definitely get you back on. There's so many more questions I have. I want to talk through these things. This is just so much fun to dive deep into these questions. I know, of course, folks, we've spoiled the story a little bit here as we get ready to join Frodo and Sam for the final moments on the slopes of Mount Doom. But I think y'all know what's going on. It's the destruction of the ring next. But, Tom, I really wanted to get your insights before we did. So thank you one more time.
Thanks. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me. Thanks, Matt.
Great chatting with you, Tom. And folks, just a reminder, go buy the book. You guys will love it. It's absolutely great. And so much wonderful insight from Tom in this book.
Man, it was great to have Tom with us today.
Yeah.
I talk about some insight. That book, folks, Pity, Power, and Tolkien's Ring. Seriously, go get it.
So good.
Yeah. For now, though, Matt, I'm going to have you pick up to start this evening's readings.
Now, said Sam, at last I can deal with you. He leaped forward with drawn blade ready for battle. But Gollum did not spring. He fell flat upon the ground and whimpered.
"Don't kill us!
He wept.
Don't hurt us with nasty, cruel steel! Let us live, yes? Live just a little longer. Lost, lost, we're lost. And when Precious goes, we'll die. Yes, die into the dust."
He clawed up the ashes of the path with his long, fleshless fingers.
"Dust,"
He hissed. Sam's hand wavered. His mind was hot with wrath and the memory of evil. It would be just to slay this treacherous, murderous creature. Just and many times deserved. And also it seemed the only safe thing to do. But deep in his heart there was something that restrained him. He could not strike this thing lying in the dust, forlorn, ruinous, utterly wretched. He himself, though only for a little while, had borne the ring. And now dimly he guessed the agony of Gollum's shriveled mind and body. Enslaved to that ring, unable to find peace or relief ever in life again. But Sam had no words to express what he felt. "Oh, curse you, you stinking thing," he said. "Go away, be off. I don't trust you, not as far as I could kick you, but be off. Or I shall hurt you, yes, with nasty, cruel steel." Gollum got up on all fours and backed away for several paces, and then he turned, and as Sam aimed a kick at him, he fled away down the path. Sam gave no more heed to him. He suddenly remembered his master. He looked up the path and could not see him. As fast as he could, he trudged up the road. If he had looked back, he might have seen not far below Gollum turn again, and then with a wild light of madness glaring in his eyes come, swiftly but warily, creeping on behind, a slinking shadow among the stones.
All right. Well, we certainly don't want any slinking shadows here.
No.
Let's go back to the beginning of that passage. After Frodo's very formal farewell to Sam last week that we also talked about with Tom, our intrepid gardener is left behind to deal with Gollum, who has just attacked them both before being cowed by Frodo and the wheel of fire about his neck.
Yeah, and Sam, who's, let's face it, been itching to kill Gollum since they found him in the Emyn Muil.
How many times has he just said, why don't we just kill him?
Right. Now, Gollum is essentially at Sam's mercy.
Yeah.
Sting is drawn, and Gollum, of course, is weaponless.
Yeah, where would he put it? Yeah.
Yeah, but Gollum, he doesn't attack Sam. He doesn't fight at all. Instead,
Right.
he pleads for his life.
But he does add a wrinkle that he's never included before, and I think it's likely because he genuinely didn't know what Frodo was going to do with the ring until now. We talked about that last week. He asks Sam, begs Sam for just a few more minutes of his life. He knows his life is lost. It's over. When the ring goes, he's going to die.
Yeah, he specifically talks about dust.
Yes.
And picks it up. I think he knows, like we talked about in the mailbag recently, that his life will end very quickly at the moment the ring is destroyed.
Yeah, I think so. Now, remember, unlike Bilbo, whose life was also extended by the ring, his life was still within the possible lifespan of hobbits. Granted, at the long end, he was, he passed the old Took on the way to the Grey Havens. Smeagol's life, on the other hand, was extended by more than 5 centuries.
Yeah.
So when the power of the ring is undone, his physical life is going to waste away in seconds or minutes.
Yeah, and not to mention the way that the ring departed their possession.
Yes.
Is another key factor there.
Totally. Yeah. The fact that Bilbo was willing to give it away,
Yeah.
Made a huge, huge difference, as Gandalf explained in Shadow of the Past.
Now, this actually causes Sam a moment of hesitation here. And we know that he's angry and he's remembering all the terrible things that Gollum has done.
It's a long list.
It's a long list, yes. And Sam knows that it wouldn't only be fair and right, but it's also the safest thing to do under the present circumstances.
It would be wise, my friend, to kill this thing. Yeah. I mean, really, this is how you protect yourself. Yeah. But, and this is so important, Sam finally, after all this time, feels pity. We read deep in his heart, there was something that restrained him. That something, of course, is pity. This is a really key moment. He is following in a line of Hobbit ring bearers who have felt pity for Gollum. You know, Bilbo, we just talked about not only how he exited the possession of the ring, but how he came into the possession of the ring, right? His pity towards Gollum wasn't even based on his experience as a ring bearer. Frodo, partly as a ring bearer, partly after having heard what Gandalf told him about, his life. But now Sam, who was a ring bearer for just a very short time, is finally feeling pity on Gollum.
Yeah. And I love that we saw earlier that Sam had the ring for such a short time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But seeing Gollum's condition, he thinks back to that time, that however brief it was, when he was a ring bearer, and it brings about something he's never really had before in relation to Gollum, which is empathy.
That's a good idea. It's a good catch. I mean, it's the empathy, I think, that enables Sam to finally feel pity for him. Yeah. But, Sam being Sam and not exactly having a high emotional IQ, he doesn't have the vocabulary to express these feelings. So, he uses the words he does have. He curses Gollum and tells him to go away.
This makes me think of my kids when I say, use your words.
Yeah, seriously. Come on, Sam. You can say it. You can say it. I feel so sorry for you, Gollum.
Yeah.
But you can't follow. Yeah.
Now, he reminds him that he doesn't trust him. I love, not as far as I can kick you.
Which is probably pretty far right now, Gollum being very, very lightweight. Yeah.
Yeah. And he tells Gollum, he's going to hurt him if he doesn't go away. But he does give Gollum the chance to leave alive.
That's right.
Which, is a pretty big development for Sam here.
It is.
Gollum wisely takes advantage of this opportunity, backing away at first to make sure Sam isn't pulling some trickery.
Pulling some Gollum-type moves. Right, exactly. It's because he knows what he would do.
Yeah. And then Gollum turns and runs away.
Yeah. Bravely, bravely runs away. Oh, brave Sir Gollum. But Gollum being Gollum just cannot refrain from following the ring. I mean, look, maybe he genuinely wanted to. Maybe he was willing at one point to sit and wait for his death to come. Maybe there's even a part of him, I think, that wanted to let Frodo destroy the ring. Because, there's got to be a part of him that craves release from his mortal life at this point after all these centuries. But he's an addict. He cannot turn away.
And Sam, for his part here, he suddenly remembers, Frodo.
Oh, that guy
that I've been traveling with for months. He starts going up the road as quick as he's able, and Gollum, we see, turns and follows.
Yeah.
And his eyes, the text tells us, is filled with a wild light of madness. Which is never a precursor to good things.
No, that's true. This isn't a wild light of madness because he's about to throw a surprise party.
Yes.
I mean, this is bad stuff. Now, this confrontation on the slopes of Mount Doom was not originally part of Tolkien's drafts. This part of the story went through a lot of changes, and we're going to talk through many of them in this episode. But I will say this, the end always had Frodo unable to throw the ring into the fire. Always. And before we move on with the text, we're going to take a look at some of those alternate cuts right after the break. Now, we're going to take a look at some of those alternate endings in just a moment, but first we want to remind you that there's a lot more talk going on at the Prancing Pony podcast than just us.
The PPP has an amazing listener community. They're always coming up with great questions and discussions across all our social media spaces. Check out our common room on Facebook, our dedicated subreddit, Twitter, and more.
Now, on Facebook, just look for the Prancing Pony podcast. You can follow the page to get the news and episode releases, but you're going to want to join the Facebook group to get involved in some great discussions.
Or if you prefer Reddit, find us there at r/PrancingPonyPod. On Twitter and Instagram, we're simply @PrancingPonyPod.
Now, if you want some daily Tolkien content, and who doesn't, please check out Today's Tolkien Times on YouTube and all your favorite podcast apps. It's my new short format daily show with everything from Mailbag Monday to Silmarillion Saturday. Please check it out at youtube.com/@TolkienTimes and follow @TolkienTimes on all your social media. Now, before we get back into the chapter itself, I really want to talk a little bit about the road that Tolkien took to get to the ending that we're about to experience. So we're going to talk about a few alternate endings. We've talked before about how from the very beginning, Tolkien knew that Frodo would fail in his quest. In Sauron Defeated, Volume 9 of the History of Middle-earth, Christopher Tolkien points to an outline he says almost certainly dates from 1939, just 2 years after the publication of The Hobbit, 16 years before The Return of the King would be published. And in that outline, we read this. At end, when Bingo, who later of course becomes Frodo, at last reaches Crack and Fiery Mountain, he cannot make himself throw the ring away. He hears Necromancer's voice offering him great reward to share power with him if he will keep it. At that moment, Gollum, who had seemed to reform and had guided them by secret ways through Mordor, comes up and treacherously tries to take ring. They wrestle, and Gollum takes ring and falls into the crack. The mountain begins to rumble. There's some stuff in that sticks around, right?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously,
absolutely.
the ability to throw the ring in, that's just part and parcel of what the ring is. But
yeah, I have to say, I love, reading the notes, like always throws me off a little bit because it's not proper English, obviously.
Right,
So when
he's just jotting stuff down.
Yes, he's just jotting stuff down. So when you read at last reaches Crack and Fiery Mountain, I'm like, Crack and Fiery is an interesting name for a mountain there.
Crack and Fiery Mountain. I love it. That's a great name. What's that mountain over there? That's Crack and Fiery Mountain over there. Yeah.
It's like, wait, are there two? Nope, that's Crack and Fiery. That's his name.
I like that he already has Gollum falling in, trying to take the ring and falling. And yet that doesn't stay for a while. He changes that, doesn't he?
Right. Yes. We'll see a few variations on Gollum's demise here.
Quite a few.
In this episode.
He doesn't live in any of them. Spoiler.
Right. Spoiler. Yes. So 2 years after that, Christopher says that his father was still unsure of how to conclude this part of the story and shares the following. Eärendil, with Mount Doom written above it, has 3 great fissures in its sides. They are very deep and, at an unguessable depth, a glow of fire is seen. Every now and again, fire rolls out of the mountain's heart and down the terrific channels. The mountain towers above Frodo. He comes to a flat place on the mountainside where the fissure is full of fire, Sauron's well of fire. The vultures are coming. He cannot throw ring in. The vultures are coming. All goes dark in his eyes and he falls to his knees. At that moment, Gollum comes up and wrestles with him and takes ring. Frodo falls flat. Here perhaps Sam comes up, beats off a vulture, and hurls himself and Gollum into the gulf.
I love it. I love it. Even he's not sure.
Yeah, it ends on a question mark,
maybe
in
Sam
case you
comes
couldn't
up,
tell.
beats off one of the vultures and hurls himself and
Yes.
Gollum into the gulf. Wow.
Yeah.
Sam sacrificing himself to save Frodo and complete the quest.
Yeah, that's some heavy stuff. I do have to point out the vultures is very interesting because, these would be the anti-eagle. So like what would later be the fell beast, the Nazgûl mounts.
The winged mounts that the Nazgûl ride. They kind of are vulture-like, aren't they? I mean,
a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Carrion beast certainly fits, right? Which is what Eowyn calls it. Yeah. I don't know. It's an interesting idea.
I just picture if this was the version that if they were vultures, then the Rankin and Bass version would have the vultures from Jungle Book, that are based off the Beatles, maybe. They come up.
I don't know. What about
sing a little song?
Oh, man. I like that. Now, that's funny. That's funny. I'm picturing the Nazgûl on the back of one of those indecisive vultures.
That's a pretty good illustration, in waiting for an aspiring artist out there who wants to tackle that.
Aspiring artist who wants to end their career very quickly indeed. Yeah.
I will also mention, this idea of Sam sacrificing himself is heavy stuff. And
that is heavy.
I was reading letter 246, which for reasons that will become apparent later in the episode, it stuck out to me. Tolkien mentions how Sam infuriates some readers,
Yes.
which is kind of wild, to think, because he's so beloved in the fandom.
And yet there are moments where you just want to kick Sam. Yeah.
Right. And so it kind of makes me wonder, like, okay, if the people who were infuriated back then reading about Sam, would this have, how would they have felt about this?
Would this redeem Sam in their eyes?
Would this redeem it? Or would they be like, finally, we're rid of this guy? Which is wild to think that people would think that about our poor Sam.
The chief hero of the story.
That's right.
Yeah. Even Tolkien in his letters kind of throws Sam under the bus a few times.
A
right?
little
He talks
bit,
about him being cocksure. He talks about him being not all that bright and very parochial in his views, very limited, very almost xenophobic in a way, very insular. So, there are some drawbacks to Sam, but I think Tolkien's inclusion of Sam, and we'll probably do this, I think there's a question actually in the bag coming up about being irritated with Sam. So I'll just save some of it for that. But Sam's an interesting guy, and there's no doubt that he does get under some people's skin. Here, though, he would have just thrown Gollum in and it would be all over for both of them. And all right, let's go home now.
Yeah.
So even the part that we discussed at the end of last episode and the start of this one, this attack by Gollum on the slopes of Mount Doom, that was also different originally. In another outline, Tolkien decided that Sam had to be left behind so that Frodo would go up the mountain by himself, as we see in the published version. That outline read, Sam must fall out somehow, stumble and break leg. Thinks it's a crack in the ground, really Gollum. Makes Frodo go on alone. Frodo toils up Mount Doom. Earth quakes, the ground is hot. There is a narrow path winding up. 3 fissures. I love it. He's just bullet pointing this outline, right? He says, boom, boom, boom. Tolkien goes on. Near summit, there is Sauron's firewell. An opening inside of mountain leads into a chamber, the floor of which is split asunder by a cleft. Frodo turns and looks northwest, sees the dust of battle. Faint sound of horn. This is Windbeam, the horn of Eärendil blown only in extremity. Birds circle over, feet behind. Now, before you go on, I want to do a sidebar to the sidebar. This is the only mention of Windbeam in the Legendarium or the History of Middle-earth volumes. So it's the only time this horn is named. But the name of Windbeam is also mentioned in Letters from Father Christmas in the 1941 letter. There, it is the great horn that Father Christmas had to blow that year for the first time in more than 400 years as the result of a goblin attack. And it was back over the fireplace by the 1942 letter, never to be named again in Tolkien's writings.
Wow.
Windbeam. I love it.
Santa Claus is Eärendil confirmed. That's what we've just learned.
I love that. I absolutely love that. I'll definitely accept that as canon.
Now, before we move on, I did want to mention, I highlighted the phrase Sam must fall out somehow.
Yeah.
Like he knew that he wanted Frodo to go in by himself alone initially, which is really interesting. I love seeing these glimpses of, where there's beats of the story that he knows are solid. Like this has to happen.
The inability to throw the ring in.
Right. Yes, he had to get there. Yeah. He had to get there, and he had to get to this moment where it's Frodo alone for a time. Yeah. And it's interesting to see the wheels turning, so to speak, of how to get there.
It really is. And I that's the thing about these History of Middle-earth volumes, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you get to see the process in a way that you never see with any other author. It's just mind-blowing.
Yeah.
And the fact that he's so good at it really just makes it entertaining and interesting to read.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, let's face it, a lot of these alternate endings, it's like, that's pretty cool too, actually.
Yeah, isn't it? They're all cool. I love it.
Now, we'll get to some more of these alternate endings probably later in the episode.
Oh, we will. Yeah.
In the mailbag. And we've got an interesting what if in the mailbag tonight, just to kind of whet your appetite for that. But Alan, why don't you go ahead and do the next reading for us?
All right. The path climbed on. Soon it bent again, and with a last eastward course, passed in a cutting along the face of the cone, and came to the dark door in the mountain's side, the door of the Samath Naur. Far away, now rising towards the south, the sun, piercing the smokes and haze, burned ominous, a dull, bleared disk of red. But all Mordor lay about the mountain like a dead land, silent, shadow-folded, waiting for some dreadful stroke. Sam came to the gaping mouth and peered in. It was dark and hot, and a deep rumbling shook the air. "Frodo! Master!" he called. There was no answer. For a moment he stood, his heart beating with wild fears, and then he plunged in. A shadow followed him. At first he could see nothing. In his great need he drew out once more the Phial of Galadriel, but it was pale and cold in his trembling hand, and threw no light into that stifling dark. He was come to the heart of the realm of Sauron and the forges of his ancient might, greatest in Middle-earth. All other powers were here subdued. Fearfully he took a few uncertain steps in the dark, and then all at once there came a flash of red that leaped upward and smote the high black roof. Then Sam saw that he was in a long cave or tunnel that bored into the mountain's smoking cone. But only a short way ahead, its floor and the walls on either side were cloven by a great fissure, out of which the red glare came, now leaping up, now dying down into darkness, and all the while far below there was a rumor and a trouble as of great engines throbbing and laboring. The light sprang up again, and there, on the brink of the chasm, at the very crack of doom, stood Frodo, black against the glare, tense, erect, but still as if he had been turned to stone. "Master!" cried Sam. Then Frodo stirred and spoke with a clear voice. Indeed, with a voice clearer and more powerful than Sam had ever heard him use, and it rose above the throb and turmoil of Mount Doom, ringing in the roof and walls. "I have come," he said, "but I do not choose now to do what I came to do. I will not do this deed. The ring is mine." Whew. Wow.
It's getting real, folks.
Yeah, it sure is. It sure is. My goodness, Frodo, no!
Well, going back to the beginning of what you read there, we get a glimpse of where we are on the mountainside. It bends again to the east, cutting across the face of the mountain to the door of the Samath Naur. Yeah. And Tolkien sets the stage for us. The sun is rising. It's a dull red through all the fumes, but Mordor itself is dead. It's quiet. It is waiting.
Oh, this is a pregnant pause if there ever has been one. Now, as before, we are seeing this from Sam's perspective as he gets to the opening and looks in. And I got to say, this is a pretty terrifying place. I mean, obviously it's hot, right?
Yeah.
It's a volcano. Yes, going to be hot. It's dark. There's rumbling all about. The entire place is throbbing with the sound.
Sam here, he calls for Frodo, but hears no reply. Then, despite his fears, and they must be tremendous at this point.
They've got to. Either that or he's totally numb to fear, right?
Right.
I mean,
yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Goodness, Sam. Yeah.
Yeah. So Sam goes in, and Gollum, of course, is following behind.
Yeah.
And as he enters the darkness, he goes back to Old Faithful, the Phial of Galadriel, but it has no effect here.
Unbelievable. I can just hear Sauron telling Eärendil, "You have no power here."
It's wild. I did a video recently on the Phial of Galadriel, and it's interesting that it's a light in dark places, but
not in this dark
but not
place.
in Mordor. Yeah. So we have come to one of, if not the most evil place in Middle Earth here.
I suspect it probably wouldn't work in the Tower of Barad-dûr either.
Probably not. That's why I said one of.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking Barad-dûr.
These are probably the two places and the only two places on Middle Earth right now.
Yes.
I mean, we could speculate if the Phial had existed when Beren and Luthien went into Angband. Okay. But it didn't. So let's talk about that. Yeah. Why? Why do you think? I mean, I guess I have my own speculation. I'll throw this out there and you can play with this one if you like. I see the light of Eärendil in the Phial of Galadriel as, what it is. The captured light of a reflection of a very distant Silmaril.
Yes.
Which itself captured the light of the trees, which themselves were less light than the original globes, right?
The lamps. Yeah.
The lamps.
Yeah.
So we've already got a second best thing. And then the second best thing is captured in the Silmarils. And then this is the reflection of the light of the Silmarils. So there's so many reductions in power along each step of the way.
Yeah. Again, we're purely in the realm of guesswork here.
Well, Tolkien says nothing about this moment.
My guess is, if Sam was wielding a Silmaril here, that would still give off light.
Yes, I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right.
But like you said, it's a reflection, and we're in the heart of Mount Doom here, where Sauron crafted his one ring. Like this is a place of power. Yes, this is a place of power. I love in some of the earlier texts here, we get this phrase, this is Sauron's well of fire was one of the quotes. This is obviously a place of great significance to Sauron.
Well, yeah, think about it. He built the road in such a way that he can see the opening to the cracks of doom from his tower at the top of Barad-dûr.
Yeah. And really getting into, kind of the guesswork that comes along with fantasy, sci-fi, that stuff. You think, if the act of creating the One Ring and putting so much of himself into that object that happened right here.
Yes.
Does that leave a remnant of some kind?
Some sort of residue.
Some malice. Yeah.
Yes.
So, some kind of malice residue.
I'm sure it does. This place
It's hard to say. It's a bad place, guys, at the end of the day.
That's all you need to know. Yeah. Very bad place. And I think that is exactly what we're supposed to draw from this.
Yes.
This is a bad place. The fact that the phial does not work here is indicative of the amount of power, the amount of evil power that is present in this location. Yeah.
And we see he moves forward into the darkness when he sees red light that goes up and hits the roof of the cavern.
That's right. Now, just as a brief aside, folks, this mention of the roof is why Karen Wynne Fonstad can confidently state in her atlas that the Crack of Doom is not an access to the central vent of the volcano, but a chamber split by a lateral vent. Because if it were the central vent, there would be no roof. Sam would be looking up and seeing the sky itself, assuming he could see through the fumes.
And sure enough, we get Sam's perspective as he walks through a cave that heads into the cinder cone at the top of Mount Doom. And there's a vent, a fissure that comes across the cave, the lateral vent. Yep. And this is a very volcanically active space. Glare leaping up, dying down, great engines throbbing.
What a sound that is, huh? Yeah.
And against the light of the flaring lava coming up from the fissure, he sees Frodo backlit, standing absolutely still.
That's right. Sam calls out for Frodo, and this time he does get a response.
Yeah.
But it's not the one he wanted. Yeah. Frodo speaks in a voice that Sam has never heard him use before. And the way that voice is described reminds me of the moment not long ago when Sam had other vision and was watching Frodo interact with Gollum and felt like the voice was coming from the wheel of fire at Frodo's breast. But now we're not told that it feels like that. Sam's hearing Frodo speak these words, and he's hearing that voice come from him.
Yeah, and he's hearing it loud and clear, even above the tumult of an active volcano, after all.
Yeah, and he's probably not standing 6 inches away from him, which you'd probably have to do to actually hear a normal voice in this kind of setting.
Yeah, especially someone who's been as frail and in such poor condition as Frodo.
That's true.
But Frodo, with finality, speaks formally again and claims the One Ring.
Wow.
And we see here that he specifically refutes his earlier choice. I do not choose now, and I will not do this. And this would be a really long sidebar if we went into all the what ifs and arguments about Frodo's choice here. It's safe to say we might explore this more at length in the postscript, but I want to at least touch on it here.
I think we should. In an earlier version, Frodo says, "But I cannot do what I have come to do." And it was changed to this, "But I do not choose now to do what I have come to do." That's
significant.
It sounds significant, but in Sauron Defeated, Christopher Tolkien says, "I do not think that the difference is very significant."
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And I know. I thought the same thing.
Sorry, maybe I shouldn't say that.
No, we're not trying to disagree with Christopher Tolkien, but you're right. It feels significant. His point is that, and I'm going to go back to his words, since it was already a central element in the outlines that Frodo would choose to keep the ring himself, the change in his words does no more than emphasize that he fully willed his act.
Yeah.
Okay, I hear you.
Yeah. Now, Tom Shippey has thoughts on this in Author of the Century. He quotes Frodo's words here, then says, with that, he puts it on for the 6th and final time. It is a vital question to know whether Frodo does this because he has been made to, or whether he has succumbed to inner temptation. What he says suggests the latter, for he appears to be claiming responsibility very firmly. I will not, the ring is mine.
But go not to the Shippey for answers, for he will say both yea and nay. He immediately says after that, against that, there has been the increasing sense of reaching a center of power where all other powers are subdued. There you go. He's actually calling back to that Phial moment we just talked about. If that is the case, Frodo could no more help himself than if he had been swept away by a river or buried in a landslide. It is also interesting, Shippey says, that Frodo does not say, I choose not to do, but I do not choose to do. Maybe, and Tolkien was a professor of language, the choice of words is absolutely accurate. Frodo does not choose. The choice is made for him. Wow. Okay, Tom,
Man.
That's brilliant. That is brilliant. Observing the difference between I choose not to do and I do not choose to do. Oh, man. That is semantic, but it is absolutely on point.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know, it gives you that sense of like Frodo's inside there somewhere saying like, I can't do it.
Yeah,
like,
I do not choose to do. I cannot, but he says I do not. And that does really raise the question, doesn't it?
Wow. Yeah, that's really interesting. The choice of words.
Yeah. And, we've talked before about how it's very rare for Tolkien to sort of, accidentally use a word.
Yeah.
He's very, very intentional.
Normally very intentional. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And the fact that he says it now maybe this is just because it's a more formal way of saying it, but boy, I do not choose is very different from I choose not to do.
You touched on the point. This does sound more formal, so it could be, you could simply chalk it up to this sounding more formal and going with the rest of the language.
The placement of the negative modifier really does make a difference, right?
Yeah.
If Frodo had said, I choose not to do this, then it is his choice not to do this.
Yeah.
But then he actually says, I do not choose to do.
Yeah.
I can hear what Shippey's saying here.
Oh, absolutely.
He is not choosing. The choice is made for him.
Now, another Tom Hillman, has thoughts on this as well.
Of course.
And we talked about this with him earlier. We'll explore more from his book in the postscript as well, I think.
I think we will. In the meantime, what do we think, right? We've been reading in the letters a lot lately, especially with the revised and expanded edition recently coming out. And Tolkien very clearly says that Frodo is not to blame. He says, we can at least judge them by the will and intentions with which they entered the Samath Naur, and not demand impossible feats of will.
Or the argument that Frodo's failure was not a moral failure because the ring was impossible for anyone to resist, especially after all that. I do not myself see that the breaking of his mind and will under demonic pressure after torment was any more a moral failure than the breaking of his body would have been.
Wow. Demonic pressure after torment.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not kidding. He's literally taking the choice away from Frodo in the way he's writing
absolutely.
This.
Yeah.
And that then raises the question, if he can't choose, is he responsible for that action?
Right.
And
I think it's also worth noting here, as we've said, there are certain things that Tolkien knew were going to happen. And like you said, Frodo was always going to fail.
Even when he was Bingo, he was going to fail.
Even Bingo was going to fail.
Yeah. Tolkien's made that clear. Nobody alive, nobody dead, no created being would have had the ability to resist the ring.
Yeah.
Poor Frodo. I mean, talk about a no-win situation. Yeah.
Now, this is probably a good time to mention one of the other alternate endings because the changes take place before Frodo claims the ring as his own. In this version, which Christopher says came to light after The Treason of Isengard was published, so in Tolkien terms, that's fairly recent, there are some similarities with some of the ones that we discussed earlier. Sam falls and Frodo goes on alone. Then Gollum leaps on Sam as soon as Frodo has his back turned.
Because of course, yeah.
Yep. He hears the horn of Eärendil and sees birds above him before realizing they're Nazgûl. Then, as he enters the Sammath Naur, this outline reads, he does not wish to enter chamber or to throw away the ring. He hears or feels a deep, slow, but urgently persuasive voice speaking, offering him life, peace, honor, rich reward, lordship, power, finally a share in the great power, if he will stay and go back with a ring wraith to Barad-dûr.
That's not a ride I want to take.
Right. And this actually terrifies him. He remains immovably balanced between resistance and yielding, tormented. It seems to him a timeless, countless age.
Oh man, what a rough spot to be put in. Yeah. Like, okay, now I'm trying to resist this.
Mm-hmm.
But boy, I don't want to throw away the ring. And look, I can still get all these things that I want.
Kind of an aside a little bit, but I love the moment where he says he sees birds above him before realizing they're Nazgûl. That's just a very cinematic moment, if you will, where it's like, oh, there's birds. That's always been a good thing. And then, nope, it's Nazgûl. It's just, it's
terrifying.
Yeah, it's the anti-eucatastrophe, which is not
which would just make it a catastrophe.
Which could just make it a catastrophe.
The bad, good catastrophe.
Yes.
No, it's just a catastrophe, man. I love that, though. I love the coinage of a new word at any time. That's great. No, it is just it's his lift coming to pick him up. So he's got to look at his app and see which one of those is his ride.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that outline continues with this interesting twist. Then suddenly a new thought arose, not from outside, a thought born inside himself. He would keep the ring himself and be master of all. Frodo, king of kings. Hobbits should rule. Of course, he would not let down his friends, and Frodo rule hobbits. He would make great poems and sing great songs, and all the earth should blossom, and all should be bidden to his feasts. He puts on the ring. A great cry rings out. Nazgûl comes sweeping down from the north. The eye becomes suddenly like a beam of fire, stabbing sheer and sharp out of the northern smoke. He struggles now to take off the ring, and fails. The Nazgûl comes circling down, ever nearer. With no clear purpose, Frodo withdraws into the chamber. Fire boils in the crack of doom. All goes dark, and Frodo falls to his knees. At that moment, Gollum arrives, panting, and grabs Frodo and the ring. They fight fiercely on the very brink of the chasm. Gollum breaks Frodo's finger and gets ring. Frodo falls in a swoon. Sam crawls in while Gollum is dancing in glee, and suddenly pushes Gollum into the crack. And fade to black. I like that, actually. Sam is the guy here. He doesn't have to throw himself in this time.
Right.
I note that.
I have to point out that Frodo says that he would make great poems and sing great songs. So clearly he aspires to have a bit of Tom Bombadil in him.
He clearly does. I'm not sure if the ring would grant him that power.
I don't think it would, And Gollum breaks Frodo's finger instead of biting it off, which is, I don't know, is that any better? Like, I feel like that playing out
would hurt even more.
Right, yeah. I just imagine the crack and yeah.
And then twist until he can pull it all the way.
Oh,
I mean, just take it. Take the ring, man. Yeah, the thing, of course, here that's the most interesting is the idea that for a while, Tolkien was toying with the idea of Frodo being tempted. Well, even in the final version, we don't get the inner dialogue, but clearly he's tempted and succumbs to the temptation and says the ring is mine. But here we get that inner stuff. We get the stuff that we got with Sam, where Sam saw himself as hero of the age and, Samwise the Strong. Here it's Frodo, king of kings. Interesting temptation. And he succumbs, but he succumbs because nobody could possibly not. And again,
right. Yeah,
I think
of course.
That's the point is nobody would have been able to withstand this.
Yeah.
But it is interesting that he perceives the thought arises from inside himself. I'm not sure that it does. I think he sees that. He thinks that thought comes from inside himself, but that thought is coming from the ring. It is coming from Sauron's will.
Absolutely. And I love, that we get to look at these alternate versions, and like you said, Gollum ends up dying anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
This one
every
we
single
get,
one of them.
yeah.
It's like a highlight reel, and in every one of them, Gollum's ends up in the fire.
This one, Sam just pushes Gollum in, which is kind of cool. It's a little less dramatic than Sam diving in with Gollum in tow.
Yes.
But yeah, I kind of like the idea of Sam
and
just
Rosie's a little
waltzing in
that
and
way,
pushing him on in there. Yeah.
Yeah, I do too. I think, there's another alternate version we'll get to later that I love. It's Sam's hero moment.
It's my favorite. Yeah.
I think you know exactly what I'm talking about. Well, we'll get there eventually. For now, though, why don't you go ahead and pick up where I left off?
And suddenly, as he set it on his finger, he vanished from Sam's sight. Sam gasped. But he had no chance to cry out, for at that moment, many things happened. Something struck Sam violently in the back. His legs were knocked from under him, and he was flung aside, striking his head against the stony floor as a dark shape sprang over him. He lay still, and for a moment, all went black. And far away, as Frodo put on the ring and claimed it for his own, even in the Samath Naur, the very heart of his realm, the power in Barad-dûr was shaken, and the tower trembled from its foundations to its proud and bitter crown. The Dark Lord was suddenly aware of him, and his eye, piercing all shadows, looked across the plain to the door that he had made, and the magnitude of his own folly was revealed to him in a blinding flash. And all the devices of his enemies were at last laid bare. Then his wrath blazed in consuming fire, but his fear rose like a vast black smoke to choke him. For he knew his deadly peril and the thread upon which his doom now hung. From all his policies and webs of fear and treachery, from all his stratagems and wars his mind shook free, and throughout his realm a tremor ran. His slaves quailed, and his armies halted, and his captains suddenly steerless, bereft of will, wavered and despaired, for they were forgotten. The whole mind and purpose of the power that wielded them was now bent with overwhelming force upon the mountain. At his summons, wheeling with a rending cry, in a last desperate race there flew, faster than the winds, the Nazgûl, the ring-wraiths, and with a storm of wings, they hurtled southwards to Mount Doom.
All right, well, let's go back to the beginning of that passage. Man, this is, I guess I should apologize, first off, folks, the fact that this is going to be a very long episode. I should have said that at the very beginning. I think everybody could have guessed. But also, unlike other sections, we are reading every word here. Now, fair use says we shouldn't read every word in a chapter, and we haven't. This is the last part of a chapter, and so we skipped parts earlier so that I wouldn't have to skip anything here, because I don't think you can skip anything in this section of the text. And wow, every word is important. So we're going to go back to the beginning of those words. Sam sees Frodo disappear, but things are beginning to happen around him now. Look, the text says many things happen, but can we be honest? Only one thing happened to Sam. He gets attacked by Gollum. The other stuff that happens is happening 30 miles east of here.
Yes. So Sam is hit from behind, his legs taken out from under him and thrown to the side. His head hits the floor and everything goes black for a moment. But it's what's happening 30 miles away that we want to focus on in this passage.
That's right. Frodo's act of claiming the ring right here in, as we talked about, one of the darkest, most powerful places in all of the world, in the very heart of Mordor, causes the power, capitalized P, and of course that is Sauron, to be shaken, and for the tower itself to even be shaken as well, from the very foundations all the way to the highest tower. Yeah,
it's kind of cool because all this time, as we've been following Sam and Frodo, they see evidence of other things happening, and it's kind of cool that, in this moment, this small moment between the three of them, it's shaking everything. All the big events, what we see is these big wars and everything, they're directly impacting that now. Now, Tom Hillman makes the point in Pity, Power, and Tolkien's Ring that These foundations, it will be recalled, had been laid using the ring and could not be destroyed while it existed.
Yeah.
This is the most significant demonstration of the ring's power we have seen thus far, and emphasizes the intimate connection between the power with which Sauron imbued the ring and the works he wrought with it.
Oh, that is an excellent catch, Mr. Hillman. Now, obviously, Sauron is instantaneously aware of Frodo, and foop, the eye looks across to the Samath Naur. And I'd imagine, I know the text doesn't say this, but I kind of picture Sauron rolling that eye back into his head a bit as he face palms, and was like, what did I just do? I mean, that's what I do when the magnitude of my own folly is revealed to me. It's just really hard for me to imagine Sauron not just like, oh, you're kidding me.
Right.
What? How did this happen? Yeah.
I love this, that all the plans of our heroes, it all hits him with like a ton of bricks here.
Wow. Yeah, he figures it all out. He's not stupid.
Yeah. But this whole time, the idea that they would seek to destroy it does not enter his mind.
It hadn't even entered Gollum's mind until the very end.
Right.
It's not something
and he's on the trip.
Exactly.
And we see that he knows that this is why Aragorn and the army are here at the Black Gate. This is why Gandalf didn't take the deal from the mouth of Sauron. And this is why all these things have happened.
He's seeing all of this now and being like, you've got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
And he is ticked.
Yes.
I mean, but here's the thing. I mean, Sauron's always angry. He is perpetually angry. He's definitely a get off my lawn sort of dude if there was any grass in Mordor to begin with.
Yes.
But he's more than just angry, right? Wrath blazed in consuming flame. I love that. I think I should use that phrase. Dad, are you angry at me? My wrath is blazing in a consuming flame, son. You better obey. No, that's a pretty heavy level of anger. But here's the thing about Sauron, and we know this about him. He is scared.
Yes.
Right? Not only does the wrath blaze up, but his fear rises to choke him.
Yeah.
Oh.
He knows in this moment his very existence is threatened.
Yes.
And not just his power, not just his plans of world domination, his very existence is threatened.
This is what we call an existential threat, quite literally. And going back to Hillman in Pity, Power, and Tolkien's Ring, he says, we again see how intimate the link is between the Dark Lord and the ring because he has transferred so much of his native strength into it. Frodo's claim is, of course, a further reminder, if one were needed, that the Dark Lord's fate is tied to his rings. But for Sauron, learning the magnitude of his folly is both literally and metaphorically apocalyptic. It is absolutely world-ending for him, metaphorically, but quite literally if the ring is destroyed. Yeah.
And he also adds this beautiful irony that Sauron discovers how deceived he has been in very much the same way as Celebrimbor had by hearing the ring claimed at the Samath Naur.
Oh.
And I honestly don't think I ever thought of it that way before, and I absolutely love it.
What a brilliant little twist.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, because at that point, Celebrimbor is up in Eregion, and he's
thinking things are great. We
got these elvish rings. We're going to rule the world.
Yes.
Boop.
And then,
what was that?
Oh, crap.
Yeah. I felt a disturbance in the Force.
I got that reference.
I know you did. That's why I threw that reference. I can throw all the Star Wars references.
Oh, yeah.
You'll get those.
I'll get those. Yeah.
I start throwing out everything from Monty Python to, I don't know, Depeche Mode to prog rock. And, we're just going to be.
The wheels will be crickets. Spinning, but yeah. They ain't going to get us anywhere.
We're going to bring you up to speed, my friend. So all this trembling, this fear, this shaking, this has an effect not on Sauron alone, but on his forces, right? His mind is no longer focused on his battle plans. He wasn't thinking about the war. He wasn't putting his power forth toward his armies anymore.
Yeah, and this causes his armies, his captains, his slaves to stop. They're described as rudderless, bereft of will, and forgotten.
Bereft of will. Yes, I love that phrase.
And this is such an interesting, thing that we shouldn't gloss over, because it shows Sauron's power, even if he's not directly there.
Yeah.
Just the fact his will and his attention is there,
He's pulling the strings on all of this, isn't he? Yeah.
it clearly gives an added boost. And it's not to the same extent, but it kind of calls to mind Aule first created the dwarves, how the dwarves could not do anything with Aule there.
Yeah, Iluvatar tells him they won't move unless you will them to move. And
right.
like you said, it's not quite the same degree. The creatures of Sauron are, in fact, sentient. The orcs clearly have sentient will because they slaughter each other in the Tower of Garadhungel, which would not be in Sauron's plans. But the fact is, like you said, his power is so strong and his control over them so pervasive that when he stops thinking about them, they feel that.
Yes. And I mean, I'm sure whenever you get to the appendices on the podcast, we see a similar effect when the ring is destroyed in the war in the north up at Dale and Erebor, when Erebor is under siege and, there's an army of Easterlings and, Sauron's got a whole northern force up there laying siege. And after the ring's destroyed, their morale just sinks because they know like something's happened.
Yeah.
And it's not good for their side.
No, it is not. But yeah, it is interesting to see because it isn't quite literally the Aule dwarves connection, but there really is a connection that the films show it, but the films show it only at the destruction of the ring, right? We see when the ring is destroyed, we cut to the armies of the West on, outside the Morannon, and we see the forces of Sauron scatter, right?
Yeah.
We see them kind of look up like, what just happened? And then, we see all that. And that's a fine way of showing it visually. But it only happened at the destruction of the ring. I think here, this is showing that all of a sudden his ability to command is less than it was because now the ring has been claimed by somebody else. Yeah. Now, I don't think Frodo's in a position to control the armies of Sauron. I'm not suggesting that. But it sure is interesting to see the level of control and power that Sauron has over his forces.
It kind of reminds me a bit of, the effect that Gandalf has on soldiers in Minas Tirith, for example.
That's a good connection. Yeah.
That there is something to
his
that.
His presence makes a difference.
His presence makes a difference. And it's kind of the same thing I think we're seeing here with Sauron to a degree.
I think you're right. But Sauron, apparently not known for his multitasking, is bending all of his mind, right? All of his will, all of his power towards Mount Doom. And he summons the only tool that he has available to him that could get there in time, and it's the Nazgûl. And that's because his lift app is not working all that well. He can't get a driver to pick him up and get her to Mount Doom in time.
Right. Apparently all the vultures are out, or else he could hop on his vulture.
That's true. He could hop on one of his own fell beasts, yeah.
And again, you wonder, what if he just left a patrol duty around the tower, the mountain itself? Like, would it have taken that much manpower?
I mean, come on, leave 2 Nazgûl around, like one patrolling Barad-dûr, one patrolling Mount Doom. You still have 6 at the Black Gate.
Right.
Does that really make a difference?
Yeah. Like, are there union laws against it?
Maybe.
I doubt it. I don't think they have unions.
I don't think there are unions in Mordor.
Yeah.
I don't think, we've talked about Mordor's HR department before.
It's not good.
I don't think there is one.
I don't think,
Is one orc on the bottom level of Barad-dûr filling out some paperwork every now and then.
Yeah. And I mean, they definitely would have turned out a lot better for Sauron if he had. But
much
alas,
much better. Yeah.
He leaves.
Well, alas for him. Thank goodness for Frodo and Sam that there wasn't a Nazgûl on patrol. Well, now that we know that Nazgûl are on their way, let's talk about how quickly they could get there, since that is going to come up in the mailbag as well. We are not given the exact distance from the Black Gate to Mount Doom, but we do have 2 other reference points that will help us figure that out. Matt?
Yeah, we know that Barad-dûr is about 100 miles southeast of the Black Gate, and we know that Mount Doom is about 30 miles to the west of the tower.
Yeah.
So the mountain is to the southeast of the Black Gate and is about 80 miles away.
That's right. Now, how fast can the winged Nazgûl travel? Again, we're not given a specific speed, so we have to draw conclusions from the evidence that we are given. Gandalf tells Pippin way back, when he's riding to Minas Tirith with him, it is 200 leagues or more in a straight flight from Barad-dûr to Orthanc, and even a Nazgûl would take a few hours to fly between them.
Now, 200 leagues or more is kind of vague, but
Yeah.
let's go for quick and easy math here. Let's go with 200 as the distance. That's 600 miles.
Right.
And then how many hours is a few? And
That's the problem, isn't it? Yeah.
yeah, I've always defaulted to, that's at least 3.
Yeah, otherwise it's a couple.
Yeah, otherwise it's a couple. Definitely not more than 6, because then you're getting into several territory, I feel like.
I agree. I think even more than 5 maybe is
Yeah.
several or a bunch or something.
I think so, yeah.
That would give us a speed. I mean, if it's a few hours 3, then you're talking about 200 miles an hour. If it's a few hours 6 hours, then you're talking about 100 miles an hour. I tend to lean towards the shorter end of that. That is to say the faster end. I'm going to say roughly 150 miles an hour.
Wow.
It could be 200. It could be 100, but
Yeah.
150, that's fast.
That is fast.
That's very fast. That's faster than any, well, I'm not going to say it's faster than any flying bird. I know that there are birds of prey that
Like
can
falcons
dive
and stuff,
at higher
yes.
rates of speed.
Yeah.
But in terms of actual level travel, this is fast.
Yeah.
This is very, very fast. Now, if we take that distance of 80 miles from the Black Gate, we're talking anywhere from 24 minutes, that's if they can go 200 miles an hour, all the way to 48 minutes if they can only do 100. But I think it's safe to say somewhere between 30 and 40 minutes, right? Half an hour, maybe a little longer. In other words, not fast enough for Sauron.
Right.
That is not instantaneous, but it's certainly faster than he could get there in his physical form because he doesn't have wings. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously the Balrog would be flying in the sense that he was running very fast because they don't have wings. Yeah.
Thought I was going to have to bring your tenure here to a very quick and abrupt end.
Oh no, I'm in the same boat.
That's what I
my
thought.
Lego Balrog, my little bitty Lego Balrog, I took off his wings. Yeah, he doesn't have wings. So
that's right. They don't have wings.
I know
That's
what's
right.
up.
Matt knows what's up, folks. There we go. We got the title of the episode. Matt knows what's up.
All right. Well, let's get back into the text. Alan, you want to take it away?
Yeah, this is just, I mean, man, this part of the chapter is so dense with just activity, but not a lot of dialogue, right? Mm-hmm. But it's, oh man. All right, here we go. This is it, man. This is it. Can you believe it? I can't believe we're at this moment. Sam got up. He was dazed and blood streaming from his head dripped in his eyes. He groped forward, and then he saw a strange and terrible thing. Gollum, on the edge of the abyss, was fighting like a mad thing with an unseen foe. To and fro he swayed, now so near the brink that almost he tumbled in. Now dragging back, falling to the ground, rising and falling again. And all the while he hissed, but spoke no words. The fires below awoke in anger. The red light blazed, and all the cavern was filled with a great glare and heat. Suddenly, Sam saw Gollum's long hands draw upwards to his mouth. His white fangs gleamed, and then snapped as they bit. Frodo gave a cry, and there he was, fallen upon his knees at the chasm's edge. But Gollum, dancing like a mad thing, held aloft the ring, a finger still thrust within its circle. It shone now as if verily it was wrought of living fire.
Precious, precious, precious!
Gollum cried.
My precious, oh my precious!
And with that, even as his eyes were lifted up to gloat on his prize, he stepped too far, toppled, wavered for a moment on the brink, and then, with a shriek, he fell. Out of the depths came his last wail,
Precious!
And he was gone. And a huge thanks to Matt, who saved my bacon on that by doing Gollum when my cold was preventing me from even attempting it.
Happy to help out where I can.
That was great teamwork right there, man.
That makes up for all the times that I drag you down in this podcast. So getting to the text here, we see Sam gets up. He's definitely stunned, dazed, as the text says. And he's got what looks like a head injury. There's blood coming from a wound to his head right now.
Exactly. Now, that blood does appear to be a holdout from a previous version of the text. Christopher Tolkien explains in Sauron Defeated that earlier versions had Sam bleeding from the head after the attack by Gollum on the road up the mountain. Christopher admits, "It is not clear to me what my father had in mind here. At first sight, there might seem to be a connection with Sam's blindness. Sam feels a blindness coming on and wonders if it is due to the water of Mordor. Sam, half blind, is lagging behind." Those are Tolkien's words that Christopher is quoting. Christopher goes on to say, "But that seems to have been introduced to explain how it was that when Gollum attacked, Frodo went on unaware of what had happened. Whereas here, the blood in Sam's eyes was the result of Gollum's attack, and he himself urged Frodo to go on. Possibly the cutting of his forehead was intended to explain why Sam could not see Frodo when he looked up the path, and was removed when my father came to the point when Sam was again felled by Gollum in the Samath Naur." Now, whatever the case, Sam's likely going to have to be in concussion protocol before he plays next week, if he doesn't die in a volcano or get taken to the Halls of Lamentation by a very fast Nazgûl.
Oh, those Halls of Lamentation, man.
Yeah, those Halls of Lamentation, they are ugly. We're talking like avocado-colored carpet, all stinky with clearly they have cats that they've not controlled.
Oh, they don't vacuum?
No, they don't. The paint's peeling. The lights they're just fluorescent tubes now. Yeah.
Oh, man. That's
it's really
bad
unpleasant
stuff.
Halls of Lamentation.
Really, the Phial of Galadriel doesn't even work there. It's so bad. That's how bad it is. All right. So when he's finally able to figure out what he's seeing, it's Gollum fighting with an invisible enemy.
Ooh.
And
wonder who it could be.
Yeah, that's a mystery. A stripped down Nazgûl, maybe. But close to falling into the fire, he falls, gets up, falls again, hissing the whole time.
I get knocked down and I get up again.
Hey, that's like the second time we've used that one. Yeah.
I know, but it fits so well
it
there.
Fits,
it has
yeah.
to, yeah.
Now, this brings me to a question I don't think I'd ever considered until this read through. Frodo's invisible.
Yeah.
Sam saw him vanish when he put the ring on. So how did Gollum find him to fight?
Well, I can safely say we can rule one thing out, and that's random chance, right? He's not groping around until he finds him. Tolkien himself in letter 192 makes this clear when he writes, "Frodo deserved all honor because he spent every drop of his power of will and body, and that was just sufficient to bring him to the destined point and no further. The other power then took over," and he capitalizes other power. "The writer of the story," Tolkien says, with both writer and story capitalized. Yeah. Tolkien goes on, "By which I do not mean myself, that one ever-present person who is never absent and never named." So besides the first rule about Eru, which is never talk about Eru, what we learn here is that as soon as he got to the cracks of doom, Iluvatar took over.
Yeah. So the question now is, does that mean that Iluvatar led Gollum to Frodo, or was Gollum using his super sniffing nose, or did Frodo simply not move from the spot he was standing when he vanished?
That's possible. Yeah.
Yeah. After all, the moment he vanished is when Sam was attacked. Ergo, it seems very likely Gollum was watching him at that moment as well.
Almost certain. Yeah.
Or maybe because of the connection to the ring and its overwhelming power here in this place of forging, Gollum maybe could sense the ring itself rather than Frodo.
Yeah.
What do we think? I have to say right off the bat, I did really like in the movies how they had the footprints on the hot ground, because it kind of solved this very question.
It does address that, doesn't it?
So, if Gollum would have just blindly jumped, that would immediately, people would have been like, how does he know he's there?
Right. And we don't see that in the books, right? We don't see, because Sam doesn't see how Gollum finds Frodo. So it could be footsteps like in the film. It could be that he sees a shadow. Because
shadow.
We know that Bilbo casts there's a moment where Bilbo is spotted because of his shadow, which is less than it normally would be.
Right.
But
it's still there.
It's still there. And maybe he saw a shadow. That's the only thing I can think of.
It's not this pure invisibility where it just makes you impossible. I mean, obviously, you're much harder to detect.
Well, yeah.
But I mean, the things like the shadow, you're still going to.
You're still making sound.
Things.
You're still going to have smell. You're not. You haven't phased to another dimension. You know, you kind of have, but it's a very close dimension. It's right next door. I don't lean towards Iluvatar pushing Gollum towards Frodo. I think Iluvatar's involvement with Gollum is at the very end. Tap. That's all it is. One little tap on the shoulder is all he needs. I do lean towards the connection to the ring. I really think like that wheel of fire that Sam saw, Gollum, I think, can sense it in a very different way.
Yeah.
Because of his close connection to the ring. I mean, I don't know if he literally smells the ring, but I think he senses it in some way. That's where I land, at least.
Echolocation.
I can hear Gollum now chirping and listening for the responses. Like the whale in the pilot whale in Finding Dory.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Man, good stuff. Well, as this fight between Gollum and the invisible Frodo rages on, so too do the fires rage. Possibly in some response to Frodo's claiming of the ring. I mean, I know there's a lot of volcanic activity happening, right? We've already seen the beginnings of an eruption when Sam is on the top level of the Tower of Cirith Ungol. He sees it. But is there?
Maybe.
I don't know.
But we see in that bright light, Sam can see Gollum bring his hands toward his mouth, then bite down with a snap.
Oh, man, that's gonna
Frodo
hurt.
cries out. He's visible now, and he's on his knees at the edge of the crack. And yes, holding his hand, I'm sure. Gollum dances like a mad thing and holds up the ring.
That's a phrase.
With Frodo's bloody finger still in it.
Oh, and that's going to be dripping. That is just...
Also, in the movies, they did a pretty good job with the dripping blood. Yeah,
they did, because, man, it would be just gushing. Well, his hand would be gushing. The finger would be dripping because there's no heart to push the blood anymore. But yeah, disgusting. Absolutely vile. We're told the ring now is shining like it is wrought of living fire. What a phrase that is. It sounded familiar. It felt like something that should have been used before. I actually searched the text for the phrase living fire. It isn't used. I thought it would have been for sure. It sounds like something Isildur would have said. He did talk about it being hot as a gleed, talked about it being a thing of beauty, but he didn't use the phrase living fire. But man, it's a very evocative phrase. And one imagines the ring would be, when it's visible like this, when it's being held and not worn, would be more beautiful right here, right now, in the place of its forging than at any other time since its very making by Sauron. It would be a terrifying beauty, but it would be very beautiful because it's trying to tempt you too.
Beautiful and terrible. Yeah.
Yeah.
So dancing and holding the ring up, Gollum is simply crying out to his precious over and over again, filled with this ecstatic joy at being reunited with the ring.
You know, people aren't going to believe this, but I hate to laugh at a serious moment. No, I cannot help it. I almost thought about it when you were doing the lines for me. I can't help thinking of you doing your precious, 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 I love you. The Peaches song from the Super Mario Brothers film, reimagined by the Nerd of the Rings, which was pure brilliance when that came out.
Easily the silliest / possibly dumbest thing I've ever released on my channel.
Possibly, but also the thing that's gotten more hits on your TikTok channel than anything else.
Oh, that's
right?
true. That is true. Yes.
That is such a TikTok thing, but it was really well done and it was hilarious. And yeah, it does. When you said precious over and over again, that was all I could think of. But, right at that moment, thankfully, rather than hearing Jack Black sing, instead, the hand of Iluvatar comes in and just gives Gollum a little nudge, What about that?
Take
that
a little
thing with
tumble
the dragon?
off the
I just
cliff.
gave him a little nudge out of the door. No, this is Iluvatar giving him a little nudge over the ledge as he looks up to gloat more about the ring.
Yeah.
And I think there's something there,
Yeah.
It is Gollum's self-satisfaction, his smugness, his pride in this moment that leads him to the very end. He steps too far back, right? He loses his balance. He falls shrieking into the chasm, though I have to admit, I kind of want to see it in one of those Wile E. Coyote moments where he steps back and there's nothing beneath his feet and he looks down and realizes his eyes get big and then he plunges,
Yes.
And he wails that one last cry of precious before disappearing into the flame. Man, what a moment.
And watching Gollum do his little dance is something that Tom Hillman discusses in Pity, Power, and Tolkien's Ring, observing that no passage attests to the ring's hold on its bearer more dramatically than the death of Gollum. Dancing like a mad thing and shrieking its name over and over as if in ecstasy, he falls into the fire. Only minutes earlier, he had whimpered that he would come to dust with the ring destroyed. At this point, he has not held the ring in 78 years, but possession regained sparks a joy that renders death meaningless. Even at the last, he cries, "Precious."
Man. Now, I want to point out that this falling into the cracks of doom fulfills the prophecy of Frodo, also known as the prophecy of 3 minutes ago, that if Gollum ever touches him again, he'd be cast into the fire of doom.
Yeah, and another interesting thing to note here, Hammond and Skull tell us that as first published, Gollum's wail was spelt precious with a lowercase p. It was revised to capitalized precious, thus indicating the ring rather than Gollum himself in the second printing, 1967, of the Allen and Unwin second edition.
That's interesting. Yeah, I know when we first started seeing Gollum using precious capitalized and uncapitalized, we quickly realized precious was when he was talking to himself and he's using that, that term of endearment, if you will.
Yes.
But anytime he capitalized it, he was specifically talking about the ring. So that makes sense. And that's it, Matt. The ring has been destroyed. Thank you all for joining us on the Brandon's Pony. No, it's not the end.
This is a normal length episode ending right here, but we're going to keep going.
I know, seriously. How did you feel the first time you read this? Or maybe since you saw the films first, when you first saw this moment, did you know beforehand how this would end, that Gollum would be the one falling in?
No, so I think I told you last episode or recently that I watched Fellowship and Two Towers, then read the books, then watched Return of the King.
That's right. I remember because I remember you telling me that a friend of yours said you got to see Fellowship.
Yeah.
And you're like, whatever, man. And then eventually you did, and you're like, oh, this is great. I'd forgotten that you saw the two before you read the book. So you came to this moment in the books not having a clue.
Right. Yes.
I'm so jealous. I'm so jealous. Yeah.
There was a part of me that, and it's funny now, like knowing now more of storytelling and stuff, how silly it would have been if this would have happened. But there was part of me that was hoping that like Bilbo was going to just show up and like help at the last moment because I always felt for him, like, because he kind of started the whole, or he saw himself as starting the whole mess, when
like he says at the Council of Elrond, well, I got us into this mess. I'll get us out. Yeah.
And I started with, when I read the books, I started with The Hobbit because I was like, oh, that's the first one. And so I just instantly fell in love with Bilbo. He's my favorite. Yeah. He's my favorite Hobbit. I love Bilbo. So there's this small part of me that was really hoping he'd show up before the end to help out, even though it would make no sense.
It would not make any sense. But, that's brilliant though.
But it's an interesting ending, and especially, in more recent times, it's not one that you would expect that Gollum would just slip in. It would be much more common to find the ending where Frodo, even like in the movies, how they fight over it, or where Sam dives in and sacrifices himself. Like,
I know that's the one I thought would feel the most cinematic and the most modern.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. It would feel very, very modern. So to have it end the way it did, it honestly probably stuck with me more because it's not the standard, it's
not what you expect.
Yeah. It's not what you would expect. And, in the years since then, that's been 20 plus years ago. In the years since, diving more into all the meaning behind it that I didn't pick up on the first time. It just makes me appreciate it all the more, the deeper lore behind it, and even this things on the macro level that are happening within the characters themselves.
And that's the thing I've really enjoyed and learned as we've been doing this podcast is, this isn't my first read through, and I thought I knew a lot going in, and I am learning new stuff every time as I research these things. And I have to admit, I didn't see it coming either when I first read the books. I was only 14, I think. I'd read the Hobbit book when I was 9 or 10, and I didn't even know about the Lord of the Rings until I was a freshman in high school because
it hadn't come out yet.
Oh, wow. It hadn't come out yet.
That was low.
1954. Wow. Oh, man. That was a good one. I'm speechless. It's so good I can't come back. So I've said this story before, but I don't know if I've told you. I read The Hobbit And the book that I read was the volume that I read was the Rankin and Bass.
Oh, tie-in? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So it had their illustrations, which was fine.
Yeah.
Except for the terrible elves of Mirkwood. But it didn't include the little page that you always see in most books, which is also by this author. Or if you like this, you'll like these. There was no mention
That's
of
interesting.
anything. And there was no internet, so I couldn't just Google J.R.R. Tolkien.
Right.
And I was 10, so I didn't exactly go to the library to look it up on an index card,
Right. Yes.
in the catalog system. So I found out about it through some friends when I was a freshman in high school. Read The Fellowship, read Two Towers, read Return of the King in maybe a week and a half while I was still attending school full time.
Wow.
I mean, I kind of skipped my homework. And yeah, me too. I got to this moment and I was totally surprised. Though I admit I did not think Bilbo would show up. I thought Frodo was going to be a hero and, he was going to throw it in.
Yeah.
Or that Sam would have to take it from him and throw it in. I never thought about, I'm 14. I didn't think Sam would, hurl himself into the chasm, but I certainly didn't think that Gollum would just slip on in. What a story.
Right. Gosh, you mentioned it earlier, how no matter how many times you read this, I feel like, or how many podcast episodes you do or YouTube videos you make, you always catch new things and learn new things about this world. And it's part of what makes it so special and so awesome.
100% agree.
Is there so much to be gleaned from this?
It really is.
And to learn. I am constantly learning new things about Middle Earth. And that's why
every time
I'm always so hesitant when people are like, "Oh, well, you're a Tolkien expert." I'm like, "Oh, but
please don't use the word expert."
Yeah, don't.
Me,
no. I'm like, I'm learning stuff every day, guys.
Every time. Exactly. I mean, like I say, most of the things I learn, I sound like I now know. You're finding out the things, listener, that I discovered 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Right.
That's how it works. That's
yes.
I mean, sure, I'm digging in, I'm digging deep, and I'm maybe digging deeper than most folks would do on a surface reading. And that's fine. That's my job.
Yeah.
But, I am learning new things every single time. It's fantastic. I love it. Okay. Before we move on, I really do want to touch on one more of those alternate endings right here. This is an ending I would have liked. I have to admit, I really, really do. Tolkien writes, "Perhaps better would be to make Gollum repent in a way. He's utterly wretched and commits suicide. Gollum has it, he cried. No one else shall have it. I will destroy you all. He leaps into crack." By the way, I just need to say that's not the part that I love. That actually breaks my heart to think that Gollum would take his own life in a way that was wrathful rather than how we speculated before, where he might realize that casting himself into the fire is the only way to save Frodo. Yeah. I liked that. Anyway, going back to Tolkien's version of this here, he says, "Fire goes mad. Frodo is like to be destroyed." And here's where it gets fun. "Nazgûl shape at the door. Frodo is caught in the fire chamber and cannot get out. Here we all end together," said the Ringwraith. "Frodo is too weary and lifeless to say nay." Okay, stage is set. Is this the moment or what? This is great. "You first," said a voice, and Sam with Sting stabs the Black Rider from behind. Frodo and Sam escape and flee down mountainside, and Alan cheers like a madman. That is a moment. I love it. First.
I have to say, I immediately thought of the film where he says, "Not if I stick you first." It's
yes,
the
exactly.
Same thing. Yeah,
it's exactly what I was thinking of as well. Yeah, man. Sam gets a hero moment taking out a Nazgûl. That's
pretty great. But yeah, I totally agree. For Gollum just to be utterly wretched and commit suicide, that's a pretty downer.
And Christopher Tolkien does say that above that, his father crossed that out and said no.
Yeah,
and I think that that's pretty significant. I just, I didn't want to include that in there because it's a digression from what's already a digression.
Right.
But
yes.
I did at least want to mention it.
Double digression. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, Matt, we are running so long and I don't care. How about you go ahead and read the next section for me?
All right. "There was a roar and a great confusion of noise. Fires leaped up and licked the roof. The throbbing grew to a great tumult, and the mountain shook. Sam ran to Frodo and picked him up and carried him out to the door. And there upon the dark threshold of the Sammath Naur, high above the plains of Mordor, Such wonder and terror came on him that he stood still, forgetting all else, and gazed as one turned to stone. A brief vision he had of swirling cloud, and in the midst of it towers and battlements, tall as hills, founded upon a mighty mountain throne above immeasurable pits, great courts and dungeons, eyeless prisons sheer as cliffs, and gaping gates of steel and adamant. And then all passed. Towers fell and mountains slid. Walls crumbled and melted, crashing down. Vast spires of smoke and spouting steams went billowing up, up, until they toppled like an overwhelming wave. And its wild crest curled and came foaming down upon the land. And then at last, over the miles between, there came a rumble, rising to a deafening crash and roar. The earth shook. The plain heaved and cracked, and Eärendil reeled. Fire belched from its riven summit. The skies burst into thunder, seared with lightning. Down like lashing whips fell a torrent of black rain. And into the heart of the storm, with a cry that pierced all other sounds, tearing the clouds asunder, the Nazgûl came, shooting like flaming bolts, as caught in the fiery ruin of hill and sky, they crackled, withered, and went out.
Wow. Wow. I have to say, this was a passage. It was very hard for me to choose who read what for this part of the chapter because everything is phenomenal.
It's really good, yeah.
I've always loved these intense descriptions without dialogue. And I'm not saying I don't enjoy doing dialogue. I do, unless it's Gollum. But this passage is so vivid. It is so evocative. It is so powerful. Wow. You did a great job. Fantastic. This is such that paragraph alone, from a brief vision to the end of that paragraph, is just so rich. Read it again, people. Seriously. Stop, put pause on the podcast, open up the book, and read it aloud. It is just so potent. So here we're focusing now on the aftermath of the ring's destruction on Sauron. The text doesn't mention Sauron here, but we are certainly meant to view his demise through the destruction of Barad-dûr, whose foundations were laid with the power of the ring. And the first thing that Sam sees, and of course, remember, that's whose perspective we're seeing this whole thing through. First thing he hears is this huge roar of noise and the fires jumping up to hit the roof of the cavern.
Yeah, then we've got an earthquake as the volcanic eruption begins.
Yep.
And Sam picks up Frodo, carries him out of the chamber to the doorway, and I'm sure intended to start making his way down the mountain.
Sam had hope, right? He wants to make it back. He's got Galadriel's gift that he's got to get back to the Shire with.
That's right. But instead, he's frozen in wonder and terror and stands like a statue looking east toward Barad-dûr.
Yeah. The way it's described, gazed as one turned to stone, sort of made me think a little bit of that passage that we reread recently about Gandalf on Shadowfax, who alone could withstand the terror.
Oh, yeah.
Standing there like a graven image from Rathdinnen.
Rathdinnen, yeah.
I was like, this is that, but because of fear and terror, not in spite of fear and terror. It's a very interesting twist. But what he sees, and therefore what we see through his eyes, is impressive.
Yeah, we get a vision of Barad-dûr, towers and battlements as tall as hills.
Oh, so powerful.
Sitting on a throne made of mountain above dungeons and prisons, gates of steel and adamant. We're seeing this truly mighty thing, a thing that is powerfully evil, pits, dungeons, prisons, that kind of thing. And this thing that we might say is indestructible, gates of steel and adamant.
That's a very good point, the whole evil thing. It's not, what does it say here? So immeasurable pits, great courts and dungeons, eyeless prisons. This isn't like over the dining halls and over the residential quarters.
The swimming pool.
Yeah, exactly. This is a terrible, terrible, terrible place from top to bottom. And then we see it in the process of destruction. And read that again carefully, folks, right? You've got the towers falling, the mountains themselves sliding, the crumbling walls, And then after the smoke and steam, we get what looks almost like the building itself dissolving into liquid. I mean, look at this final description of the overwhelming wave, the wild crest, and the foaming. It is changing its very form of material here. This is an intense destruction. And then we get a rumbling followed by the deafening crash and roar. And this would have taken some time, right? Barad-dûr, we know, is 30 miles to the east. Sound travels roughly, very roughly, 5 seconds a mile. It would take 2.5 minutes for the sound of that collapse to reach Frodo and Sam. They're watching it happen for 2.5 minutes before even the first sounds hit them. He's frozen there for a long time.
Now, of course, the collapse of Barad-dûr is not the only apocalyptic event to happen in Mordor this day.
This day in Mordor history.
Of course, we have a full-blown volcanic eruption, starting with an earthquake and the plain itself cracking before fire starts shooting out from the top of the cone.
That's pretty intense. I mean, so not only is the volcano itself going, but the plain itself, the entire volcanic plain is becoming active at this point. And then we get lightning and thunder as well. And this is actually a thing. Lightning at a volcanic eruption does happen. And it apparently comes from particles of volcanic ash colliding with each other, generating static electricity within the plume.
Yeah, and rain too. Terrifying black rain that's described like lashing whips.
Somehow I'm thinking of a Prince song. Like the B-side of Purple Rain is Black Rain, but I think you would mention the lashing whips.
Yeah, well, and there'd be a way there.
There would. Oh, no. No.
3 times in a row. 3 episodes in a row, I think.
That is impressive.
Good. But there's one more thing to add to this list of destruction, and that is the arrival and, as we'll see, very rapid departure of the Nazgûl.
That is true. So they come racing to Mount Doom per their boss's most recent set of instructions, only to arrive in the middle of the eruption where they are caught in the fiery ruin.
Yeah.
So their arrival, which was described like flaming bolts, now becomes their destruction, crackling, withering, and going out like flames in a rain.
Yeah. But they too, like we speculated about Gollum, would have died within moments of the destruction of the ring anyway, because, their lives have been stretched even thinner than Smeagol's, and only by the power of the 9, which all 9 are controlled by the 1. So when the 1 is destroyed, their lifespan would have been measured in minutes, most likely.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the thing, maybe long enough for them to get there, as we can see. I mean, we know that it would have taken them, even at their maximum speed, it would have taken them 24 minutes. Mm-hmm. So even if we assume a 5-minute fight, which is awfully long, hard to believe that it would have gone on for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But even if we assume 5 minutes from the time Frodo puts on the ring to the time Gollum falls in, that means Sam and Frodo are standing out there. Well, we've already discussed they were standing out there for at least 2.5 minutes to watch the destruction and then hear the sound. But somehow we've got to get a passage of time of about a half an hour. So they're waiting outside, watching all this happen, sitting there watching the storm develop, and the Nazgûl show up. So clearly they are able to survive for a few minutes without the power of the ring, but their lifespan, their lives were over. It would not have taken much longer, I don't think. I just want to point out when Tolkien wrote his chronology, this is that chart that he lists all the things in the timeline. It's fantastic, and it's available in that Tolkien Studies journal supplement. He has a column for Frodo and Sam, one for Captains of the West, and a little small one for Faramir and Éowyn. And then he's got one labeled Enemies, and I just want to read what he puts under that last column on this day. About noon, or after, ring is destroyed and Barad-dûr crumbles in ruin. Nazgûl flying back in last effort are caught in eruption and burned. End of the reign of Sauron, and nothing is left of his power. That's it. I love that plain, simple conclusion. Nothing is left of his power. Now, obviously Tolkien's going to craft that more beautifully in the finished text, and we'll get to it when we get to it. But man, that outline satisfies me in a very...
I love that outline. Yeah.
Isn't that just beautiful? Boom, boom, done.
Yep. I love when we get notes of Tolkien, because when he's writing, it's so poetic and beautiful, and he chooses these wonderful words and descriptions. And I love like Cliff Notes Tolkien. When
Yeah.
he just
End
like,
of the reign of Sauron. Nothing
yes,
left of his
cuts
power.
to the
Boom.
heart of it. Yeah. Well, with that, why don't we get to our last reading of this episode? Alan, take it away.
I will. I can't believe we're at the end of this chapter, but, well, we're at the end of something, that's for sure. Well, this is the end, Sam Gamgee, said a voice by his side. And there was Frodo, pale and worn, and yet himself again. And in his eyes there was peace now, neither strain of will nor madness, nor any fear. His burden was taken away. There was the dear master of the sweet days in the Shire. "Master!" cried Sam, and fell upon his knees. In all that ruin of the world, for the moment he felt only joy, great joy. The burden was gone. His master had been saved. He was himself again. He was free. And then Sam caught sight of the maimed and bleeding hand. "Your poor hand," he said, "and I have nothing to bind it with or comfort it. I would have spared him a whole hand of mine, rather. But he's gone now, beyond recall. Gone forever." "Yes," said Frodo. "But do you remember Gandalf's words? Even Gollum may have something yet to do. But for him, Sam, I could not have destroyed the ring. The quest would have been in vain, even at the bitter end. So let us forgive him. For the quest is achieved, and now all is over. I'm glad you are here with me. Here at the end of all things, Sam." Oh, man, I'm starting to cry. That's
That line, here at the end of all
here
things.
at the end
man.
of all things. Oh, man.
Yeah, what a tender moment here at the start. Frodo, old Frodo is back.
Yes.
It's been a while since we've seen him.
So long. I know.
You know, he's not controlled by a wheel of fire around his neck, not the hobbit overcome by the power of the ring. It's his friend and master that Sam is seeing here.
Yeah, the Frodo of the Shire.
Yeah.
Those beautiful days. Worse for wear, to be sure, right?
Oh,
He's
sure,
pale and
yeah.
worn. It's not like he's suddenly not dehydrated and not starving.
He gets that moniker of the Nine Fingers now.
Yes, he does. But he also has a visible peace about him. There's no madness, no fear, not even any strain, as his burden is finally lifted.
Yeah, and there's a great bit in one of Tolkien's letters that kind of speaks to this. It's letter 246, like I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
This is to Eileen Elgar, and we actually quoted it earlier. It was
And
the one
we'll quote it again.
and we'll quote it again. Yes, we quoted a lot. So this is the one where Tolkien spoke about how the breaking of Frodo's mind and will under demonic pressure after torment was not a moral failure.
Right.
But he speaks to this precise moment when he writes, "He appears at first to have had no sense of guilt. He was restored to sanity and peace. But then he thought that he had given his life in sacrifice. He expected to die very soon, but he did not, and one can observe the disquiet growing in him."
Oh, and you sure can. And you can rest assured we'll revisit this again when we get to the Scouring of the Shire later this year.
Sam, of course, is beyond delighted to see the return of his dear master of the sweet days in the Shire.
That's right. And he feels only one thing, great joy. And I love it because this joy is because of the salvation of Frodo, right? It's his return to normal and his being free. It is what's happening for somebody else that is giving Sam such heartfelt joy.
Yeah. But then Sam sees his hand and realizes, having thrown everything away, they don't have a first aid kit left to care for the wound. There's
That's right.
not much he can do.
And I'm pretty sure just a regular Band-Aid isn't going to help anyway,
No.
even if you have that first aid kit. I'm not sure how many people deal with finger amputations in their portable first aid kit. Sam even says, look, I would have gladly given Gollum, an entire hand of mine rather than have Frodo lose a finger. Typical Sam.
Typical Sam, yeah.
I know.
It would have only been a flesh wound for him.
Right, that's right.
There you go.
It's not a problem, Master. I can still carry things in my other hand.
That was just for you. That reference was just for you, Alan.
Ah, nice.
Because I always miss your Monty Python. That's one of the few quotes that I know.
You do. And it was so well played, I had literally forgotten that you don't know very many Monty Python references. Yeah. That's all right. We'll get your education going.
We'll work on it.
We'll bring you up to speed. So, Sam, obviously, he says that before he notes Gollum's permanent removal from the world.
Yeah. Frodo brings it around back to pity without saying the exact word pity.
Yeah.
He reminds Sam of Gandalf's counsel that Gollum may have something yet to do.
Yeah. Now, Gandalf's actual words are very close. He says, "And he is bound up with the fate of the ring. My heart tells me that he has some part to play yet, for good or ill, before the end. And when that comes, the pity of Bilbo may rule the fate of many. Yours not least."
Yeah, Frodo doesn't get the quote exactly right.
That's okay.
So
he never does. That's
people
all
would have skewered him in the comment section, though.
That is not what he said, Frodo. Yeah, you're right. No, you're right. Especially on YouTube. Yeah.
Frodo's right when he says that without Gollum, he would not have been able to complete the quest, as we've well established. Frodo is not.
That's
going
clear
to,
now, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's clear. We made that clear. But he takes it a step further and asks Sam to forgive Gollum because it's all over now.
Yeah. And
You
it
know?
really is. I mean, what's the point in holding a grudge against the guy?
Yeah.
He's dead and
Yeah.
he accomplished what I could not have accomplished.
Yeah. And before expressing that poignant line at the end of the chapter, here at the end of all things,
Oh,
a reminder of what Tolkien said in his letter, he expected to die very soon.
man, that line is amazing. I want to wrap this up with one more quote from Hillman on this moment. He writes, "For pity could not save Frodo from the ring. Yet in the end, pity might just save him from evil. Only it cannot do so alone. No single created being in Middle-earth has enough pity and strength to succeed in this quest. Bilbo's pity, Frodo's, and then Sam's, each founded upon its predecessor, each with its own role to play in its moment. Together, create the circumstances in which the ring can be destroyed in this moment, inadvertently and providentially, by the most unlikely person imaginable, and the one least deserving the pity and mercy which all three hobbits of the Shire have shown him."
Man,
Wow.
that's really good. I
Man,
love that.
Tom,
each founded upon its predecessor.
That is so
That's great.
good. I mean, I've thought about the pity of each of them before individually.
Yeah.
I've never thought about how each was founded upon its predecessor.
Yeah.
Yeah, you look back and sure. I mean, Gandalf explains to Frodo when, the famous line, Frodo says, "Pity, it's a pity he didn't stab him in the,
Right.
in the tunnels." And Gandalf's like, "Pity, it was pity that stayed his hand."
Yeah.
Okay. And eventually when Frodo encounters him in the Emyn Muil, he feels pity and he remembers Gandalf's words. And then Sam builds on Frodo's pity
Yeah.
because he now has that experience that Frodo has had as a ring bearer looking at Gollum. Oh man, that is a brilliant observation, Tom. Thank you for that.
That's great.
Well, down like lashing whips fell a torrent of black rain, and into the heart of the storm, with a cry that pierced all other sounds, tearing the clouds asunder, the mailbag came, shooting like a flaming bolt.
Carried by a vulture.
Carried by a vulture. Nice. So, Matt, what does Bartlett have for us tonight?
Well, Perry G writes, what would have happened to Frodo and the ring if Gollum hadn't attacked Frodo? What if Sam had killed Gollum, or Gollum had tripped and fallen into the fire before biting off Frodo's finger? Sauron sent the Nazgûl the moment Frodo claimed the ring. How long would it have taken them to arrive? And what would have happened between them? Would Sauron have come himself? And I have to say, I love the imagery of Gollum rushing into Mount Doom to confront Frodo and just immediately tripping and falling into the fire.
Oh, no! That is pretty funny. I actually had a brief terrifying moment is when they were fighting and he would get back to the precipice and then come back forward. What if he fell in with Frodo?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, yeah, the ring is destroyed, but Frodo's dead and Sam is
and
just
then Sam's like,
well, this sucks.
That
what
just
do I do
happened.
now?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's terrible. Oh, man. All right. Well, that is a great question, Perry, or rather questions. And we have already talked about some of the relevant texts to answer them in this very episode. Got a bit more to share that will help guide our discussion. First, the easy part that we've already talked about. It is 80 miles or so from the Morannon to Eärendil, and the Nazgûl should arrive around 30, 35 minutes, maybe, like we talked about earlier tonight. As we know, they're ultimately destroyed in the eruption shortly after being made aware of the ring, so they are fast. I don't think this is in that 60-minute range. They're not doing 100 miles an hour because there's no way that took an hour to get there. So for some additional context into these what-ifs, we're going to go back to Sauron Defeated, where we get another alternate version of Mount Doom. I love this. So many versions. Frodo hears a voice speaking to him, promising great power. We've talked about this before, right? King of Kings. In this case, it's King Frodo, Emperor Frodo. We're told this is a last desperate attempt by Sauron to halt Frodo until the Nazgûl can reach Eärendil. This is not Sauron actually offering to share power. This is just a delaying tactic. And here's that text. Frodo puts on ring. A great cry rings out. A great shadow swoops down from Barad-dûr like a bird. The Wizard King is coming. Frodo feels him, the one who stabbed him under Weathertop. He is wearing ring and has been seen. He struggles to take off ring and cannot. The Nazgûl draws near as swift as storm. Frodo's one idea is to escape it, and without thinking of his errand, he now flies into the Chamber of Fire. A great fissure goes across it from left to right. Fire boils in it. All goes dark to Frodo, and he falls on his knees. At that moment, Gollum arrives panting and grabs at the ring. That rouses Frodo, and they fight on the brink of the chasm. Gollum breaks Frodo's finger and gets ring. Frodo falls in swoon. But Sam, who has now arrived, rushes in suddenly and pushes Gollum over the brink. Gollum and Ring go into the fire together. The mountain boils and erupts. Barad-dûr falls. A great dust and a dark shadow floats away northeast on the rising southwest wind. Frodo suddenly thinks he can hear and smell sea. A dreadful shuddering cry is borne away, and until it dies far off, all men and things stand still. I mean, again, a lot of similarities with some of the other endings we've talked about.
Yeah.
But this is clearly older, right? This is when the Witch King is still the Wizard King.
The Wizard King, yeah.
But Frodo is Frodo. He's not Bingo anymore.
Right.
And also notice the Wizard King isn't coming from the Morannon, from the Black Gate. He's coming from Barad-dûr, so it's a much shorter distance. He's going to get there in mere minutes.
I know I said this earlier, but when we read these notes and stuff, I'm so used to reading quotes from the books and letters. So when it's truncated, I think of Kevin on The Office when he says, "Why waste time, say lot word when few word do trick." We read things like, "Wizard King is coming. Frodo feels him."
Yeah. Fire boils in it.
Frodo puts on ring.
Yeah. Barad-dûr falls. A great dust and dark shadow floats away. Yeah. It is very short compared to how Tolkien actually writes.
Yes, how he expands a bit. Yes,
he does. So first we get Gollum hypothetically rushing in and tripping to his doom. But here we get Gollum showing up only to be pushed off once again off the brink by Sam.
Yeah. And what's really interesting here is the ring has just been destroyed, but it would appear Frodo is not done being lord of it. As we see in, Tolkien goes on to say, Frodo turns and sees door blocked by the Wizard King. The mountain begins to erupt and crumble. Here we will perish together, said the Wizard King. But Frodo draws Sting.
Oh, interesting. So Frodo has Sting.
Yes, Frodo has Sting in this scenario.
Okay, so it's not Sam coming from behind going, you first.
Yes. And then Tolkien goes on to say, he no longer has any fear whatsoever. He is master of the Black Riders. He commands the Black Rider to follow the ring, his master, and drives it into the fire.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I love the idea of Frodo commanding the Nazgûl. It's kind of
That's great. Yeah, that is great stuff.
Yeah. Now, this idea of Frodo commanding the Nazgûl after claiming the ring would indeed hold true later on in Tolkien's writings, as he gives his own what if, and let's be honest, Tolkien what ifs are the best kind of what ifs.
Absolutely, without a doubt.
And you'll be surprised to know this comes from letter 246.
Again.
Right. And in this case, we really get to the crux of Perry's question here, as we see a Frodo with the ring encountering the Nazgûl. Sauron sent at once the ring wraiths. They were naturally fully instructed and in no way deceived as to the real lordship of the ring. The wearer would not be invisible to them, but the reverse, and the more vulnerable to their weapons. But the situation was now different to that under Weathertop, where Frodo acted merely in fear and wished only to use, in vain, the ring's subsidiary power of conferring invisibility. He had grown since then.
Yeah.
Would they have been immune from its power if he claimed it as an instrument of command and domination?
Ooh.
And Tolkien goes on to say, not wholly. I do not think they could have attacked him with violence, nor laid hold upon him or taken him captive. They would have obeyed or feigned to obey any minor commands of his that did not interfere with their errand laid upon them by Sauron, who still, through their 9 rings, which he held, had primary control of their wills. That errand was to remove Frodo from the crack. Once he lost the power or opportunity to destroy the ring, the end could not be in doubt, saving help from outside, which was hardly even remotely possible.
Hardly even remotely possible.
Yes.
The mere possibility hadn't even considered the thought of crossing my mind.
And we see, obviously, this is very different from Frodo commanding him to jump in.
Well, right. That's probably a step too far.
Yeah.
But my goodness, I like what he says here. Look, they would have either obeyed or feigned to obey. I think that's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Anything that wouldn't, countermand their current orders. Get him to leave the crack so that then Sauron can show up, and oh boy, that's bad. So as Tolkien goes on to say that while Frodo had certainly increased in his power, right, his spiritual power, certainly not his physical power.
No.
His focus had been on resisting and destroying the ring, not on using it and wielding it, which is a whole different skill set, right?
Yes.
We talked about that with Galadriel and what she said about, only 3 times have you worn it and never have you tried this. Don't try it, right? You're not trained for that.
Yeah.
So let's go back to Tolkien's letter here. He says, the situation is between Frodo with the ring and the 8, because of course the Witch King is toast.
Yes.
Might be compared to that of a small, brave man armed with a devastating weapon, faced by 8 savage warriors of great strength and agility armed with poisoned blades. The man's weakness was that he did not know how to use his weapon yet, and he was by temperament and training averse to violence. Their weakness, that the man's weapon was a thing that filled them with fear as an object of terror in their religious cult, by which they had been conditioned to treat one who wielded it with servility. I think they would have shown servility. They would have greeted Frodo as Lord. With fair speeches, they would have induced him to leave the Samath Naur. Now, he goes on to say that they perhaps would have coaxed him outside to take a look at your new kingdom.
Yes.
And come to Barad-dûr, your new tower of strength. Destroyed the entrance to the Samath Naur, which would then eliminate the possibility of him destroying the ring, leaving Frodo high and dry. Now, unlike in the manuscript, Frodo's power to command the Nazgûl only goes so far as it doesn't interfere with their commands from Sauron, like we talked about. Yeah. And again, I think commanding the Witch King to do that belly flop into the lava, that's going to work against Sauron's objectives. So Tolkien, between the time he wrote the manuscript and the time he wrote this letter, 246, had clearly reconsidered that interaction.
Yeah. There is one thing, though, that remains consistent. It's that Sauron continues to send others to do his work rather than coming from Barad-dûr himself. Further into letter 246, he does mention that Sauron would have come to Mount Doom in the previous scenario.
Yeah.
After the Nazgûl had coaxed Frodo out of the mountain.
Right, and destroyed the opening to the Samath Naur, thus preventing the possible destruction of the ring.
Right. And he goes on to say that Frodo would have unquestionably been crushed to dust or preserved in torment as a gibbering slave.
I'm thinking probably the latter.
Yeah,
preserved in
probably.
torment as a gibbering slave. I think Sauron is a bitter guy. But there's zero chance. Less than zero chance of Frodo getting out of that. Yeah.
Yeah. But it does make you wonder, this is the one scenario where we see Sauron actually leaving. It makes you wonder if he would have fared any better if he got out of his lazy boy once in a while and did things for himself,
Yeah. I mean, I think there's some truth to be told about that, I'm sure he likes the fact that his physical form is sort of a mystery to people now. He doesn't go about accomplishing things. He's a chateau general, right? Leading from the back lines. But yeah, it would have been interesting to see him show up in person.
Yes. Yeah.
Though I am glad, to be fair, that Jackson did not do that in the films.
That's true. I think it would have raised more questions, honestly,
I think it would
than
have as
anything.
well. Yeah. Hard to believe, but folks, that does wrap it up for another episode of the Prancing Pony podcast. And sadly, for my time, at least for now, with Matt as a co-host, I'm glad you're here with me, Matt, here at the end of all these chapters.
No, have no fear. The Eagles are coming.
I'm glad to hear that. Yeah. Well, folks, please join me again next week when I am joined by Dr. Sarah Brown as we begin the Field of Cormallen.
Oh, that'll be fun.
Won't it?
Praise them with great praise.
Eglario!
Folks, Alan and I want to thank the members of Team PPP, editor Jordan Rannells, Barlaman Becca Davis, social media manager Casey Hilsey, event and Patreon community coordinator Katie McKenna, graphic artist Megan Collins, and website guru Phil Dean.
And please take a minute to check out the prancingponypodcast.com. That's where you're going to find show notes and outtakes, Prancing Pony Ponderings, and our online storefront where you can get PPP merch, including chapter-specific artwork from Megan.
Please take a moment to visit our library page. The Prancing Pony Podcast has always been about the books, so if you're interested in a book we've mentioned on the show, you'll find a link for it in our library. We get a small amount of compensation when you make your purchase, and we thank you for that.
Indeed. And we also want to thank our patrons at the Kierdan's contribution tier. I'll start with DeMay in Alaska, Chad in Texas, Lance in New Jersey, Paul in Colorado, Joseph in Michigan, Kathy from North Carolina, Carlos in California, Brian in the UK, Ned from Connecticut, Jerry from Washington, Joe in Washington, Erwin from the Netherlands, Ben in Minnesota, Anthony in Texas, Karen in the UK, and Zaksu in Illinois.
There's also Sarah in New Jersey, Joshua in Massachusetts, Lucy in Texas, Erica in Texas, Carson in Oklahoma, Vivian in California, James in Massachusetts, Ann in Kentucky, Sean in New Jersey, Mason in California, Maureen from Massachusetts, John in Japan, Olivia in London, Jackson in Tennessee, Robert in Arizona, and Nick in Wisconsin. Thank you all so very much for your support.
Indeed, thank you, thank you.
Make sure you don't miss any episodes of the Prancing Pony Podcast. Subscribe now through Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or your favorite podcast app.
And one last thing as always, don't forget to send your thoughts, comments, and, well, most of all, your health and safety guidelines for volcanic forges to Barlaman at theprancingponypodcast.com. And if you want your voice literally heard, just send us audio of your question. You can visit podinbox.com/prancingponypod and record your question for us there.
Please be sure to still email the question to Barlaman, though. Even though Barlaman's been a lot more reliable lately, there's still a lot of mail to sort through, and we'll try to get to you just as soon as we're able.
As always, though, this has been far too short a time to spend among such excellent and admirable listeners, and far too short a time to spend with such an excellent and admirable co-host. But until next time.
This is the end. We are going. We are leaving now. Goodbye.